Immortal Cultivation begins with time management. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyright or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 76. Overseas Island, Relics of 10,000 Years. Qiu Changtian spent more than 10 days to make up for Zhu Yingluyan's flaws in his Taoism. So he turned to read the game and went to Pengliu King Temple, playing as Luoyang to refine the postnatal 5 elements extinction divine light. If he was asked to evaluate from a sensory perspective, Yu King Temple was undoubtedly the best paid sect among the 3 religions. The master was generous, the fellow disciples were friendly, and the salary was extremely generous. If the benefits such as the distributed elixirs and talismans were counted, Luoyang could get even more monthly wages than Qiu Changtian. It can only be said that Tiangong Fang is really rich. If there is any flaw in the ointment, it is probably that a certain young lady always pesters me, making it impossible for me to concentrate on my work. Go away. Women will only affect the speed of my cultivation. Junior brother. Shili pinned a hairpin on her head. How do you think I wear this? Today, Miss Xu was still without makeup, wearing a green long skirt, pretty and cute, with her hair tied into a lively bun at the back of her head, and a hairpin inserted on it. Luoyang was a little speechless. Your hairpin is dull in color and has no spiritual energy. It is obviously not even a magic weapon. What can you say about it? Oh, this hairpin suits senior sister very well. He said with a smile. The shape of the hairpin itself is okay, slender and delicate, but the little bit of dark green jade in the middle is the finishing touch, which sets off senior sister's jade temperament to the extreme. Hypocritical personality, synchronization value +1. Is it really so beautiful? Shili asked in surprise. She took a bright bronze mirror and looked at herself wearing the hairpin. Of course. Luoyang said confidently. After coaxing the happy Miss Xu away, Luoyang sighed faintly. Alas, there is no way. Personality charm is like this. Even if I don't go to her, she will take the initiative to find me. I am happy to do this and I can't stop it. Although I can borrow her to brush the synchronization value is only a bonus to the comprehension talent, which does not mean that the knowledge will run directly into my mind. After all, I still need to take time to study. But, she comes over here 7 or 8 times a day, and I almost have no time to study. Wait, is there a possibility that she only comes to see me frequently not because she is attracted by my charm, but just wants to hear me say some nice words? After thinking for a moment, Luoyang quickly overturned this conclusion. The reason is that he has full confidence in his charm. Since Miss Xu is a fan of Qiu Changtian, it is natural that Luoyang, who has the same appearance, fits her aesthetic very well. Thinking of this, Luoyang quickly slipped out of Yu King Temple before Shili came again. You know, the postnatal 5 elements extinction divine light is enough to become the immortal method of the orthodox teaching. When refining the postnatal 5 elements true veins with the Yuan magnetic Gangqi, there will be strange celestial phenomena, so it must not be easily known to others. You have to find an absolutely safe place to practice. Flying eastward on the vast sea, Luoyang carefully scanned the bottom with his eyes, guarding against the monsters that might rush out of the sea at any time. In this world, east of the Shenzhou continent is an endless ocean, and the further east you go, the more powerful the sea monsters in the sea are. It is said that at the extreme east, at the end of the ocean, is the Dragon Palace where the dragons live, and only immortals can reach it. From this rumor, we know that if we continue to fly east, we will sooner or later encounter Jindan-level monsters. Therefore, after discovering that the monsters in the surrounding seas are generally at the water level, Luoyang no longer went deeper eastward, but began to turn south to look for uninhabited islands. Finally, after flying for about half an hour, he found an uninhabited deserted island. There are no man-made buildings on the island. There are hills in the center, dense jungles around, and the coastline is composed of beaches. Luoyang pressed the sword light to fall on the beach, walked towards the jungle on the island, and also sacrificed the Tianfen seal, and acted carefully. After passing through the woods and killing several monsters that looked like cheetahs with the Tianfen seal, Luoyang finally found a natural cave near the central hills. He used the purifying technique and pulled out the universal pure sound small light technique with his left hand, but did not release it. He just held it in his hand as a light source. With his right hand, he pinched the dough formula to control the heaven flipping seal, ready to smash forward at any time. After going deep into the cave for dozens of breaths, the air was still extremely fresh, but the surroundings became increasingly dim. Suddenly, Luo Yan noticed that the road down ahead had turned into a rough and polished stone staircase. Is there someone here? He immediately became alert and continued to move forward for dozens of steps. After turning the corner, he entered a stone chamber. The stone chamber was very small, about 30 square meters, and there was nothing else but a stone bed against the wall. Sitting on the stone bed was a skeleton in a meditation posture. Judging from the grayness of the bones, it should have been dead for a long time. Next to the skeleton, there was a jade slip. Luo Yan silently stepped back a few steps and retreated to the outside of the stone chamber. He pulled out the kingpin sword from his body with his right hand and pinched the jade pivot thunder in his left hand. If the dead person's soul left his body and hid under the jade slip, and was about to attack and seize his body, he would immediately use the jade pivot thunder, and then escape from the passage without looking back. The kingpin sword shot out, directly picking up that jade slip, but there was nothing underneath. So he manipulated kingpin to turn into sword light, and rolled the jade slip back, but did not take it with his hands, but took it outside and wiped it on the corpse of the monster. Well, the corpse looked normal, and it seemed that the jade slip was not stained with blood and flesh poison. Finally, he picked up the jade slip and called out in his heart, "A jinn, scan this jade slip to see if there is a trap in it." "You are too nervous." Kunlin Jin complained, "It is unlikely that there is a trap in the jade slip. This is called being cautious." Luo Yan said impatiently, "Help me confirm it." Kunlin Jin sighed and went to look at the jade slip. "No problem, it's just the last words left by the corpse." So Luo Yan immersed his consciousness in it, and indeed found a message. "I am Chietong Xuan Xinren of Jirizhao. I was ambushed by the white-browed dog thief of Qinzhou near Island in the East China Sea, and all my cultivation and skills were destroyed. I fled to this place, my body is broken, my soul is exhausted, and I can only die and reincarnate. I am leaving a letter here. If someone with a destiny sees this book in the future, please bury me in a dry tomb and go to Jirizhao to find the head of the Tongshuan sect to inform him of my death. Tongshuan sect is the sect I founded and the successor of my Taoist tradition. There is a secret saying Tongshuan, Wan Fepado, which is known to all the previous heads. After the message, tell them in the secret words that they can join my Tongshuan sect and become the head's direct disciple. I can teach them many unique skills. If you already have a master and don't want to become my disciple, you can also learn a part of key refining. This method is called the Sutra of Eliminating Demons and Separating Clear and Turbidity. It is the result of my hard work and should not be lost easily. You must know that Ki is the craftsman of the gods and the source of clear and turbidity. When it is in the mysterious, the sky is clear, and when it is in people, the body exists. Life and death, loss and gain, are all in accordance with the control." Luo Yan finished reading with a strange expression, thinking that this Chietong Xuan master was really unlucky. The suicide note was written very well. Bury his body, then tell his disciples about his death, and say the secret words to prove the authenticity of the news. The reward is that you can join the Tongshuan sect he founded, and also give him a copy of the key refining technique. The request is not difficult, and the reward is given in advance, which can be said to be very generous. The only problem is, this Chietong Xuan master, let alone your Taoist lineage, even the entire Jirizhao is gone, okay? After sighing for a while, Luo Yan silently memorized the Sutra of Eliminating Demons and Separating Clear and Turbidity, and then used the thunder method to simplify the jade into powder. This eliminating demons and separating the clear and turbid scripture can only be said to be average as a key refining technique, and its key refining efficiency is far inferior to that of Nine Heavens' pure and subtle entry mantra. The only advantage is that this key refining technique can convert the clear and turbid key at will. If one originally practices the inferior magic skills, one can use this to transform the filthy demonic energy into the Taoist true essence, and vice versa. Because the disciples of Jirizhao are mixed, some people may have practiced magic skills before joining the sect, so they can use this key refining technique to refresh their points, but Luo Yan naturally doesn't need it at this time. So Luo Yan went out to dig a pit several meters deep and buried the remains of Chietong Xuan Xinren underground. Then he returned to the underground cave, the stone chamber, sat cross-legged on the bed, and prepared to use the Yuan Saganki to refine the acquired 5 elements of the true veins. Since the remains of Jirizhao's Xinren tens of thousands of years ago have not been discovered here until now, it is enough to prove that this place is indeed sparsely populated. It is just right to practice the acquired 5 elements of the great extinction of the divine light. Chapter 77 5 Elements Divine Light, Mishi. The acquired 5 elements true veins of wood that is dying but not yet dead, fire that is hard to extinguish if it is extinguished, humid soil without dart, gold that is like jade but not jade, and water that has no roots but never dies. These strange things have a common characteristic, that is, while they are about to be extinct, they have almost infinite vitality. If they are about to be extinct, they will not have violent habits and are easy to refine. Infinite vitality just fits the way of mutual generation of the 5 elements. According to the key points given by Li Gong, it is best to start refining this 5-element extinction divine light from the water true vein. The first step is to refine the water vein, and the second step is to refine the wood vein, in accordance with the way of water generating wood. The third step is to refine the fire vein, but the fire vein is restrained by the water vein, so it is absolutely difficult to practice. Since the wood vein has been refined before, borrowing the way of wood generating fire, the wood vein in the previous step needs to be refined one more than the water vein. The fourth step is to refine the earth vein. Since the wood vein restrains the earth vein, the fire vein in the previous step needs to be refined one more than the wood vein. Finally, the gold vein is refined. The gold vein is restrained by the fire vein, so it is necessary to refine enough earth veins to support it. However, according to the previous steps, the degree of refining of the earth vein should be the highest at this time, while the water vein should be the lowest. Since earth restrains water, it is easy to suppress the water vein and cause the imbalance of the 5 elements. Therefore, the one more point of refining mentioned in each step is a very subtle little bit. A little more refining, when magnified step by step, will cause the difficulty of the subsequent refining steps to increase exponentially. Luo Yan went through the key points in his mind several times, and after confirming that he had memorized it in his heart, understood it thoroughly, and there was no more hindrance, he began to carefully start practicing the first step. The sea of qi was running, and the consciousness was aroused, and a black light spot was taken out from it. This is the rootless and endless water, that is, the true essence of Geishu. When the consciousness touched it, there was a sense of coolness and depth. Luo Yan urged the Yuan Tsuganqi to wrap it up tightly, and then began to refine it. About half an hour later, a light drizzle suddenly began to fall from the sky around the island. The rain got heavier and heavier, and soon it triggered a mountain torrent. The forest animals on the island fled in panic, and the flocks of birds flew in all directions. The water flowed down the cave, and accumulated in the stone chamber to the height of the calf, just over the stone bed where Luo Yan was sitting. Suddenly, the rain outside eased a little, and the grass and trees began to grow, and soon the entire island in the rain was turned into lush green. The green color spread down the mountain steps, crawled into the stone chamber like moss, and turned into duckweed on the water surface. The roots floated in the water like jellyfish and swayed like willow branches. Luo Yan just closed his eyes and seemed to be unaware of the various strange phenomena around him. Suddenly, the surrounding flames suddenly ignited, and the duckweed spread rapidly along the water surface. Water and fire collided, and white gas rose. The fire on the water was obviously suppressed, and it was only because the duckweed provided endless fuel that it was not completely extinguished. The dense forest on the island outside was also on fire. The blazing flames shot up into the sky, and the thick smoke became more intense, swaying more and more under the beating at the rainstorm. As for the birds and beasts on the island, they either fled in panic or jumped into the sea and died. In the stone chamber, Luo Yan still sat with his eyes closed. The 5 elements of water veins, wood veins, and fire veins have all been initially refined into the Yuan magnetic energy. Now it is the most difficult step, refining the earth vein. Now in the Yuan magnetic energy, the water vein is the weakest, the wood vein is moderate, and the fire vein is the strongest. If the newly born earth vein is refined too little, it will be restrained by the wood vein. If it is too much, the water vein will be cut off. It is extremely difficult to grasp the balance. But Luo Yan has the characteristic of one hearing, 1,000 understandings after all, and he has already had an extremely perfect understanding of the key points of the mind method of the acquired 5 elements of the great extinction divine light. His mind turned slightly, and he saw that a layer of fine soil suddenly emerged at the bottom of the accumulated water in the stone chamber. The dust was born and was immediately absorbed by the roots of duckweed. However, the flames burned the duckweed, and the ashes sank to the bottom, giving rise to dust again. Since the fire was more intense than the growth of duckweed, the amount of sand and soil at the bottom of the water gradually increased, and it was like a huge sponge siphoning, causing the water level to gradually drop. Although Luo Yan sat calmly, a thin layer of sweat also appeared on his forehead. It was obvious that his mind was exhausted and he was concentrating on controlling the progress and amplitude of refining. On the island outside, fire, rain, forest growth, dust accumulation, all kinds of wonders changed so fast that it was daunting. Suddenly, a thunder tore through the world and hit the hills in the center of the island, tearing the soil layer, penetrating the rocks, and directly hitting Luo Yan, who was sitting in the underground stone chamber practicing. After a long time, the mountain fire was extinguished, the rainstorm stopped, the trees withered, only a bare deserted island was left. Luo Yan followed the cracks created by lightning and escaped with the sword light. He saw that the island outside was only barren, as if the 5 elements of spiritual energy had been completely drained. He pinched the dough formula in his hand, and a 5-colored spiritual light flashed behind him, sweeping around the island. Then the trees grew again, the springs merged into streams, the sky was covered with rainbow light, and the whole island was revitalized. Luo Yan put away the 5 elements divine light, only to find that the true energy in his body was almost exhausted, and he was shocked. How could this 5 elements divine light consume so much? It was even more outrageous than the 5 thunders. Fortunately, he was cautious by nature, and even when he came out to practice, he brought enough elixirs to prepare for any unexpected events. After recovering his true energy a little, he flew away with the sword light. Back in Yu King Temple, in his room, Luo Yan began to look inward at the Sea of Qi. I saw that the original 5-color light spots, the 5 elements of the true veins, had now turned into a large area of brilliant light, constantly flowing between red, green, yellow, white, and black. This is the acquired 5 elements of the Great Extinction Divine Light, which restrains everything in the world that does not come out of the 5 elements. For example, when the enemy deployed a gold flying sword, Luo Yan brushed away the divine light. Gold produces water, fire overcomes gold, and the light of the 2 systems of water and fire flows, and in an instant, the gold spiritual power of the flying sword can be drained, the spirituality is extinct, and it is turned into scrap iron. Its fierceness and domineering degree is even more powerful than Qiu Chain times 5 thunders. Of course, now that Luo Yan has refined the 5 elements true veins, the 5 elements divine light he has cultivated can only be regarded as a faint light. The reason is that the quality of the true Qi of the washing marrow stage is not enough. After being converted into Yuan Tsugang Qi, the 5 elements divine light that can be accommodated is limited, and the durability is not strong. After entering the Watfu stage, the true Qi is condensed and purified into true essence, and the power of the 5 elements divine light will be able to leap again. At the time, even against the Jintan's Hinran, it may not be completely powerless. However, as his biggest trump card, the acquired 5 elements Great Extinction Divine Light must not be used easily. If it is used, it is necessary to ensure that all witnesses are killed, otherwise the innocent man will be guilty of holding a treasure, and it will attract some yawning old monster to catch him and ask about the mental method of the 5 elements divine light, which will be troublesome. The cards he had hidden on him, such as the Kunlun mirror and the Kingping sword, could not withstand a thorough investigation. Junior brother. Shili ran in from outside again, angrily saying, "When did you come back? I came several times just now and you were not here." "Why, I have to report to you, the eldest lady, when I go out." Luo Yan sneered in his heart, and smiled. "Senior sister, I just went to the outer sea to practice the sword technique. Hypocritical personality, synchronization value +1. What's so good about practicing the sword technique?" Shili said puzzledly, "No matter how exquisite the sword technique is, it is not as good as the heaven-turning seal." Luo Yan laughed awkwardly, complaining in his heart. What he said was indeed true. For a disciple of the foundation building stage, even if you practiced the sword technique in 1,000 ways, if my 10th level magic weapon, the heaven-turning seal, hits you, what can you use to block it? Without a defensive magic weapon, you can only use a flying sword to block it. The so-called poor rely on hard work, and the rich rely on financial resources. The capitalist daughter can't see the hardship of moving bricks, and says eating bread is worse than eating cake, which makes people indignant. I want to tie her up and criticize her. Oh, I'm also a wealthy class in the world of immortal cultivation now, so it's okay. By the way, Shili suddenly remembered the business father asked you to go over. Oh? Luo Yan asked tentatively, did the master say what it was? It seems that Wazidong Tian is visiting. Shili said after thinking, please ask our Tiangong fan to send someone to repair their island protection formation. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 78 was a cave. Sahai restaurant to the east of the Shenzhou continent is the East China Sea, which is more than 10,000 miles long. There are many sects of cultivation on the East China Sea, with the Penglai King Temple as the most respected. There are also 72 Dontian in the East China Sea, which are 72 large sects of cultivation, each of which governs the surrounding sea areas. Zidontian is one of the sects in the East China Sea. The sect is called Zidontian, and its headquarters are located on 5 adjacent islands. Because the 5 islands are rich in Danzi, Jinzi, Yuzi, Xuanzi, and Muzi, they are named so. In fact, there are more than 140 islands outside, but the spiritual energy is thin and no monks live there. Speaking of Wuzi Island, we have to mention there was 5 fresh soups. Flying across the sea at high speed, Mishi excitedly introduced them to Luoyang like she was talking about her treasures. Danzi and green croaker abalone used to make soup, which is fresh and smooth. Drinking it can make people's eyes bright and pupils clear. Jinzi and silver shell lobster used to make soup, which is sweet and delicious. Drinking it can make people's ears sharp and hearing sharp. Yuzi and bloodline mud ginseng are used to make soup, which is spicy and fragrant. Drinking it can make people's noses open and smell all kinds of flavors. Xuanzi and black sand iron crap are used to make soup, which is slightly bitter and mellow. Drinking it can make people's throats clear and their voices like a peeper. Muzzy and yellow claw stone are used to make soup, which is sour and salty and appetizing. Drinking it can make people's spirits clear and their minds clear. Luoyang. This advertising slogan is written in parallel sentences. And to the last 2 bitter soups and sour soups really drinkable. Since you said that, I'm also a little greedy. He said with a smile. Hypocritical personality, synchronization value +1. Of course. Shilui said expectantly, with sparkling eyes, this was 5 fresh soup is a must-try when you go to Zidontian. There are also many local food restaurants, such as the largest Sahelu on Danzi Island. It is said that their seafood hot pot is simply amazing. Luoyang agreed with his mouth, but he was helpless in his heart. The reason for this trip is not complicated. The island protection formation of Zidontian was previously arranged by Elder Shidin, and it has been a bit malfunctioning recently. Since there is no talent in the formation in the other sect, they came to Tiangongfan for help. Elder Shidin calculated the time for setting up the formation and found that the formation could not fail so early. It is estimated that there is a problem with the formation flag, so he sent Luoyang, a disciple, to come and repair it. If it can't be repaired, he will go out himself. According to common sense, it is just an ordinary business trip at public expense. However, Shilui was on a whim and insisted on following Luoyang, saying that junior brother is going out for training for the first time, and as a senior sister, I'm really worried. In fact, everyone knows that this young lady is just here to play. Considering that the 2 of them have both the heaven-flipping seal, the God Strike Whip, the divine fire cover, and the Jade Empire Bell, and that Zidontian has a good relationship with Yu King Temple, Elder Shidin couldn't stand his daughter's coquettishness and finally agreed to let her go. The 2 flew at full speed to the southeast on their swords, and arrived at the Wuzi Islands in only about a quarter of an hour. Soon, someone came to greet them on a sword, smiling. You 2 have come all the way from Penglai, please follow me to rest below. The one who came to meet them was a female monk, who looked about 17 or 18 years old, with an oval face, a slim figure, smart eyes, and a beautiful smile. Her hair was dark black, fixed with a simple golden hairpin, and she was wearing a light red rouge-colored phoenix-patterned long skirt. When she got close to her, she could smell a faint fragrance, lingering in her nose, like a breeze caressing her face. Shilui was, after all, a senior member of the Appearance Association. Seeing that this girl was beautiful and charming, she immediately had a good first impression, so she asked curiously, "How do you know you're from Penglai?" The female cultivator smiled slightly and said, "Last time when I went to Fangafang City to find senior sister Yilan, I had the honor of meeting junior sister Luli. By the way, I also joined your Chain Time Club at the time." "Really?" Shiluli's eyes lit up. "There are no back people who like you, Chain Time." The 2 girls chatted for a few words and soon became close. Luoyang also knew from their conversation that this female cultivator was called Li Qingyang, a cultivator of the marrow cleansing stage of Zidontian, and that she was almost done with cutting the meridians and ascending to the transformation palace stage. "By the way, fellow Daoist Li," After the three of them put down their sword lights and landed on the forest path of Danzig Island, Luoyuan finally found an opportunity to interrupt. What exactly is the problem with your sect formation? Oh, it's like this. Li Qingyang held her hair with her fingers and sighed. The island protection formation of our cave heaven is the Disity Angan formation. It was arranged by a master himself back then. There are 108 formation flags, each distributed on the 108 islands outside the cave heaven. There is also a main flag, which is set up in the main altar inside the cave heaven. It integrates many functions such as spying, warning, defense, and trapping enemies. As long as the main flag changes its position, the formation will rotate and change accordingly. Therefore, even if someone has been spying on the formation for a long time, it is difficult to spy on the route to break the formation. It's just that since last month, the information returned from the main altar has been a bit strange. First, the spiritual power of the formation was not circulating well and was often blocked. Then the spying function was sometimes good and sometimes bad. Alas, we don't understand the formation, and we don't know if there is something wrong with the formation flag, so we came to ask for help. Luoyuan pondered for a while and said, the flags are placed at the center of the formation and cannot be moved by external forces. Unless the spiritual veins of the mountains and rivers change, hindering the operation of the formation, or the flags are polluted by evil spirits and obscuring the spirituality, of course, the details will be known later. Yeah. Li Qingyang nodded and smiled, but these 108 flags are scattered and far away from each other, and it will definitely take time and effort to check them, so there is no rush. Why don't you two stay in my cave for a while? I will invite you to try the local 5z5 fresh soup. This invitation is also reasonable, probably because the lifespan of immortal cultivators is longer than that of mortals, and they are not very urgent about efficiency and time. For example, it is normal to explore the ruins and caves with friends and play on the road for a month or so. It is important to keep your thoughts open, and you may suddenly have an epiphany one day. Therefore, Shili and Luoyuan also happily accepted. Li Qingyang took the two to stroll in the woods. The trees around were not dense, and they could see the sea in the distance, where the water and the sky met, and the white line was surging. There was also a moist sea breeze blowing, slightly salty and fishy, with abundant water vapor, making people feel relaxed and happy. Arriving at the largest local sahala, Li Qingyang ordered a banquet for the two of them, with all kinds of fairy vegetables and fruits, fish, shrimp, crabs, shellfish, and delicacies. Of course, there was also the Wazian soup that Mishi had been thinking about. It was served separately in 5 large bowls, in red, green, yellow, white, and black, with aura curling and extremely tempting. Hey, the colors of these 5 soups actually just fit the 5 elements of the true veins, which is also interesting. Shili first picked the green croaker abalone soup, poured it into the bowl and took a sip, and his eyes suddenly widened. Wow, this soup is so delicious. She couldn't help but praise it, and served another bowl to Luoyuan. Junior brother, try this soup, I can't describe it in words, it's so delicious. Luoyuan was a little moved and relieved to see that Miss Shi didn't forget him while drinking the soup. Just as he was about to take a bite of the abalone, he suddenly noticed that Li Qingyang across from him was looking at him and chillily with a smile. That kind of gentle smile with a well-hidden playful smile, it was very much like the way he looked when he looked in the mirror. Chapter 79. Just in the East Sea, going to Shushan. Arjun, does this Li Qingyang have any ill will towards me? Luoyuan asked. This broken mirror will not produce oil if it is not squeezed. Every time, you have to ask it actively before it will tell you. If you didn't ask it before, you wouldn't know that it has the ability to sense malicious intent. Not at the moment. Kunlun Mirror replied, I'm just curious about you. Oh, you want my body, right? Luoyuan sneered, Arjun, keep a good eye on her for me, and report anything unusual as soon as possible. Kunlun Mirror. Are you sick? Do you think every woman wants your body? But this Li Qingyang does seem to have some problems, Arjun decided to observe first. After the meal, Miss Shi praised the Wazian soup, especially the abalone soup and lobster soup. Luoyuan prefers seafood hot pot, and feels like he has returned to the days before he traveled through time, when he went out to compete with his 3 college roommates on weekends. Alas, they have graduated and found jobs, and I have also started to cultivate immortality. We all have a bright future. After eating and drinking, leaving Sahai Tower, Shili proposed to inspect the local market. Li Qingyang had no objection, only Luoyuan secretly thought it was not good. Whether mortals or immortals, as long as they were women, they would behave exactly the same when they arrived at a place with many shops. However, many girls only browsed but did not buy anything, while Miss she had been a child, shopping everywhere in the market, buying anything she liked without hesitation, and never asking the price. Soon, her own treasure bag was full, and she took Luoyan's storage bag and continued shopping as if nothing had happened. Li Qingyang was a little dazed watching Shilili's heroic style from behind. After a while, she said to Luoyan, "Fellow Daoist, she is truly a heroine." Luoyan glanced at her indifferently, and suddenly pretended to be surprised and asked, "Her? Didn't fellow Daoist Li admit before that he met my senior sister in Fanlu Market? She almost emptied the entire market that day. Didn't fellow Daoist Li see it? I was with senior sister Yilin at the time." Li Qingyang said without changing her expression, "I just met fellow Daoist she." "I see." Luoyan seemed to be unaware of it, and continued to ask, "By the way, fellow Daoist Li has also joined the Chain Time Society?" "Yes." Li Qingyang nodded. "I got one question wrong in the entrance exam." Luoyan narrowed his eyes and smiled. "Big brother Qiu Chain Tian, what is your favorite color? Can brother Li help me solve this puzzle?" I answered purple at the time. Li Qingyang also smiled. "I just don't know if I got it right." "She's lying," Kunlun Mirror said in the sea of consciousness. "Purple?" Luoyan asked in confusion. "Why purple?" "Because I like purple." Li Qingyang said with a smile. "I think even if Big Brother Qiu doesn't like purple, he won't hate it." Luoyan, this woman is quite good. Even if she already knows she's lying, she still can't find any faults on the surface. "What are you two whispering about in the back?" Shilili walked around in front for a long time before she found that the little junior brother in the back was talking and laughing with the girlfriend she just met, and hurriedly ran back to ask. "We're talking about Chain Time Club." Li Qingyang smiled without revealing any flaws. "Really?" Shilili blinked, seeming to be a little unconvinced. But Li Qingyang whispered a few words to her, and Shilili was relieved immediately, and the two of them continued to stroll around the market with a smile. Luoyan looked at the backs of the two people, and a cold light flashed in his narrowed eyes. This trip to a cave heaven, and the person in charge of the reception, Li Qingyang, are not as simple as they seem on the surface. However, the most urgent task is the Shushan competition on Ling Yunpo's side, and there is no need to start a new task line for the time being. Let's focus on advancing the Shushan line first. While the two girls in front have not focused on him, Luoyan quickly found an empty place nearby and started to read the file. Point 2. Shushan Shang King Sect, King Luo Peak. Character Identity: Ling Yunpo. Mirror Flower Water Moon template is overwritten, and is traveling through time and space. Back to Shushan King Luo Peak, the illusion appearance is also switched to Ling Yunpo. Recently, the Shushan competition is coming soon, and the prices of elixirs, spiritual herbs, etc. in various market towns have also risen. It is said that there are already long queues of disciples at the sword pond, because many Shushan disciples think that the quality of their flying swords is too low, and they want to go to the sword pond to draw a better flying sword. Fortunately, the senior leaders of the Shangqing sect of Shushan have a simple style and do not set any obstacles for the sword pool to take the sword. If it were the Pengliu King Temple, who is good at calculating, and gave you a paying spirit stones to draw a flying sword, and then a 10 consecutive draws, 168 spirit stone package, 648 spirit stone package, I guarantee that these Shushan disciples will cry and spend all their wealth on it. Of course, Ling Yunpo, as an enlightened sword immortal, has long gotten rid of this narrow-minded idea of borrowing external objects. Sword immortals do not polish themselves, but want to rely on flying swords. That is an evil way. I, Ling Yunpo, did not go to the sword pond at the beginning, I just drew a random one and used it. Isn't it down to earth and step by step to get to where I am now? Junior brother. Zisu came back from outside the Taoist temple and said with a smile, "Look what I bought for you." "This is," Ling Yunpo looked over, "sword box." "That's right." Zisu said with a smile, "We Shushan sword immortals hide swords in our bodies, so we can only nurture our natal swords. If you are proficient in two-handed sword control, the second sword can be placed in the sword box for warming. This sword box is made of Yuan Sasant iron, which is most suitable for nurturing gold-type flying swords. Your lucky sword happens to be of the gold type, isn't that a coincidence?" Ling Yunpo was very moved and said, "Senior sister is thoughtful, but where did this sword box come from?" "I bought it at an auction in the nearby market." Zisu said with a smile, "It didn't cost much." Hearing that it was bought, not given by a dog, Ling Yunpo breathed a sigh of relief and put the sword box on his back. Then he pinched a sword formula, and the lackey sword on his waist shot up and automatically inserted into the sword box. Master Sword Master. Lady Lee laughed cheerfully like a little girl. This sword box is really good, it's spacious and comfortable to live in, I feel full of strength. Ling Yunpo ignored it, just smiled at Senior Sister Anne. Senior Sister's vision is really amazing. I said that I always felt that something was missing in the past few days. It turned out that I was missing this sword box. He turned around and looked at the bronze mirror in front of the door for a moment. Not bad, handsome and compelling, the charm of Ling Yunpo's character image has finally been raised. Zisu stood behind, with tenderness in her eyes, looking at her junior brother wearing a green sword robe, carrying a sword box on his back, standing with his hands behind his back, and suddenly thought of the master for no reason. For a moment, I had the urge to cry again, but I tried very hard to hold it back. Recently, a reader privately chatted with me, saying that the character of Senior Sister Anne is very similar to his sister in real life. I replied with a black question mark emoticon. Then he asked me not to misunderstand. He hoped that the male protagonist would quickly take down his sister to fulfill his obsession. I replied with an old man on the subway emoticon. Chapter 80. Shushan Competition, Gold Mercury Danhua. Finally, the day arrived. On the golden summit of Mount Himalaya, thousands of swords came out, announcing the official start of the competition. Normally, the opening ceremony of the competition should be described in a few hundred words. Unfortunately, to participate in the opening ceremony, you must be led by a master. Ling Yunpo and Zisu didn't have a master, so there was no point in going to the ceremony, and they would be looked down upon, so they simply didn't go up. The two found a shady pavilion on the waist of Mount Himalaya to rest and chat. Zisu patiently told Ling Yunpo about the various matters that need to be paid attention to in the Shushan competition. For example, don't hold back, remember to establish your authority, try to be more ruthless with your sword, surrender directly if you can't beat the opponent, don't give the opponent a chance to be ruthless, etc. Ling Yunpo seemed to be listening carefully, but in fact he was always looking at Senior Sister Anne's soft face. As for the precautions, let Kunlun Mirror help remember them first, and listen to them later when you have time. After the opening ceremony was over, the two of them rode the sword light to the top of the cloud. At this time, the top of the Shushan cloud had been split open by the supreme sword intent of the master, and it seemed extremely vast. Ling Yunpo said goodbye to Zisu, and then followed the other disciples to line up on the stage to draw lots, and let the Kunlun Mirror play the instructions of Senior Sister Anne just now. It is said that the eldest sister is like a mother, but this Zisu is a senior sister. Why is she as long-winded as other people's sisters? After drawing the lot, Ling Yunpo went to find that corresponding venue on the lot. On the sword-fighting field, his opponent had already stood there, wearing the green sword robe that the disciples of Shushan usually wear, holding a flying sword. He went up and saluted, and the sword-fighting was officially announced to begin. At the beginning, Ling Yunpo jumped up and urged the Kingping sword to White Rainbow through the sun, stabbing directly at the opponent's chest. The opponent was shocked and quickly released his life sword to resist, but was crushed by the 10th level Kingping sword, splitting the sword and piercing his heart with one sword. When Ling Yunpo put away the sword light, the opponent had been sent out of the field by the field restriction and declared defeated. The first battle was a victory without any surprises. This is normal. Long before the training, Lin Yulanzan introduced him to the 100 elite disciples on the current Immortal Sword ranking. The opponent in the first battle was not in his memory. He must have been a supporting role, so he directly used his killing move to kill him, which saved a lot of time. After leaving the field, Ling Yunpo went to find Senior Sister Anne. As a result, on a sword-fighting field opposite, he saw Senior Sister Anne standing there with her sword in her hand, smiling gently. "Senior brother Yu, can we start?" Ling Yunpo also remembered the person on the opposite side. He should be the 67th place in the last Immortal Sword. At this time, the other party was pale and trembling. "Junior Sister Anne, you, have never made things difficult for you, King Luo Peak. Before the sword fight, let's make a deal. Can we not use our natal sword this time?" "Oh, you don't plan to use your natal sword this time?" Senior Sister Anne smiled. The man on the other side immediately began to sweat profusely, and bowed his head sadly, saying, forget it, I admit defeat." The audience around him immediately cursed, accusing Zisu of smiling but hiding a dagger, intimidating his opponent, and despising the Yu disciple for retreating without a fight and being useless. In the sky above, the three Yuning elders saw that the sword duel was over, and announced that Zisu of King Luo Peak won, and then turned into sword lights and fled. Zisu came down from the stage and smiled when she saw Lin Yunpo. Junior brother, how come the fight is over so quickly? Yeah. Ling Yunpo nodded and said in surprise, Senior sister, your appearance is really impressive. There are actually 3 nascent soul elders supervising you. I was sparring with someone just now, and there was only a golden core true person watching nearby. Ah. Zisu smiled softly. The elders are worried about the safety of the venue's restrictions, so they came to take a look in person. Ling Yunpo was surprised. What do you mean? Doesn't it say that the restrictions of this venue will promptly transmit the loser out of the venue at the moment before he is killed? Could this restriction also become invalid? I am ashamed to say it. Zisu said embarrassedly, this venue restriction is activated by a magic weapon called the Chuan Ruler. In a previous sword fight, I thought the restriction was safe enough, and I didn't stop when I swung my sword, but accidentally broke the restriction, and ended up killing my opponent. Since then, the elders have been worried about the effectiveness of the Chuan Ruler, so they came to take care of it in person. Haha, this is not worrying about the effectiveness of the magic weapon, but clearly they are worried that you will be too ruthless and even the restrictions on this venue can't stop you. Ling Yunpo didn't know whether to laugh or cry in his heart, but he said, so that's the case, the elders are really something. Why don't you go to Yu King Temple to buy a better restriction magic weapon? My Shushan family is big and powerful, it's not like we can't afford it. The Chuan Ruler is also a famous magic weapon of the ancient Chanzhou. Zisu explained, if it is used to restrict a single person, even an immortal can lock it for a few breaths, but it's difficult to be distracted by locking these thousands of sword fighting venues at the same time. It's just that the magic weapon operator is careless for a while. The two talked and laughed, and as they walked along, the crowd automatically parted to make way for them. Looking at the fearful and resentful faces around him, Ling Yunpo sighed in his heart. His reputation among his fellow disciples in Shushan is probably about the same as Qiu Cheng Tian's in Kunlin, but it's negative. Just as he was thinking about it, he suddenly saw someone blocking the road ahead. It was senior brother Lin Yuanzhen. Seeing Zisu and the others coming over, he bowed and said, Senior sister Anne, I have something to say to junior brother Lin. Yes. Zisu didn't ask any more questions and walked to their side. Lin Yuanzhen called Ling Yunpo to the side, and after confirming that Zisu couldn't hear him at this distance, he whispered, Junior brother Lin, do you know what the Watfu stage is? I hope senior brother can help me solve this puzzle. Ling Yunpo knew that he had something to say, so he simply got straight to the point. Seeing that he was willing to listen, Lin Yuanzhen explained in detail. The first stage of the transformation palace is to transform the Danton into a purple palace for the golden pill to reside in. The longer you stay in the transformation palace stage, the more perfect the purple palace will be under the long-term nourishment of the true essence, and the higher the grade of the golden pill formed after the tribulation. The elixir is divided into 9 grades. If the elixir is of the lower 3rd grade, it is almost hopeless to reach the nascent soul stage. If the elixir is of the middle 3rd grade, even if the tribulation is successful in the future, it will be difficult to form a top-grade nascent soul. Only when the elixir is of the upper 3rd grade will there be a chance to form a top-grade nascent soul in the future. Your senior sister Anne has a very high aptitude for cultivation. In half a century, her Qi was filled, her marrow was cleansed and her meridians were cleared, and she directly cultivated to the transformation palace stage. It is only because your master Su Jian is gone that the resources for cultivation in King Luo Peak were almost cut off, which has caused her cultivation to stagnate for a long time, and the efficiency of nourishing the purple palace is not satisfactory. But this Shushan competition is different. In order to encourage disciples to compete for a place on the Immortal Sword list, the top leaders have prepared special rewards for the Immortal Sword list. Hearing Lin Yuanzhen's increasingly serious tone, Ling Yunpo asked in surprise, what reward? Lin Yuanzhen gritted his teeth and lowered his voice. It is said that the rewards for the top 3 are golden mercury elixir liquid. Hearing golden mercury elixir liquid, Ling Yunpo also took a breath of cold air. This thing is recorded in the 9 Cauldrons Divine Pill Sutra taught by Xie Luli, and is known as the No. 1 divine pill in the world. After taking it, the floors of the Danton Purple Mansion can be quickly improved by a spoonful of true essence. In short, it is very likely that the final elixir grade can be raised by 1 level. Knowing that this is a serious matter, Ling Yunpo was startled, but asked in confusion. So that's how it is. It's just that there is no one on the Immortal Sword ranking who can be a match for my senior sister. She will naturally get the golden mercury Danu liquid, so why should you and I worry about her? Alas. Lin Yuanzhen sighed and his expression became melancholy. If it were normal, there would be no need for you and me to worry about it. But junior brother Lin, you also understand your senior sister Anne's temper. If she gets the golden mercury dano liquid, do you think she will take it herself, or will she keep it for you when you reach the waffle level before giving it to you? Ling Yunpo. This is not possible. If it were anything else, it would be fine. But this matter is related to the future path. How could senior sister Anne give it to me so easily? Given your senior sister Anne's personality, she will definitely think so. Kumlan Mirror said slowly in the sea of consciousness, it's not like I can't make pills in the future without this golden mercury elixir. It's better to leave it to junior brother Lin. Hearing this, cold sweat ran down Ling Yunpo's back. Get it? Seeing his uncertain face, Lin Yulanzhen said in a deep voice, in this Shushang competition, you must show all your strength and try your best to compete for the top rankings on the list, so that your senior sister Anne will have enough confidence in you. Otherwise, as long as her confidence in you is slightly weaker, she will definitely keep this golden mercury elixir. It's better to risk your own path and guarantee your future achievements. Chapter 81. Swear to be in the top 3, Kantai will kill. If I were to use one word to describe the relationship between senior sister Anne and myself, it would be favor. 2 words, protecting one's shortcomings. 3 words, junior brother control. It must be said that Kum Linjing and Lin Yulanzhen's judgment should be relatively accurate. After careful consideration, Ling Yunpo found that the probability of Anzisu doing this was not low. Think about it, the Thunder Sword is a 10th level immortal sword, but she gave it to me so casually. No. If I take away senior sister Anne's chance to form a pill, I can't have a clear conscience. If I have a guilty conscience, my thoughts will not flow, my heart of Tao will not be harmonious, and it will affect my future path. The road to the throne of the sky must not be tarnished. So, in the next few duels, Ling Yunpo used 12 points of violence, cut through the thorns, and passed several levels. He finally successfully entered the Immortal Sword list, and is currently ranked 72nd. After each victory, I have to report to senior sister Anne. Zisu was overjoyed, but Ling Yunpo was puzzled. Could it be that my good luck really exploded, and I won so easily after encountering weak opponents for several consecutive games? With this thought, he set a flag and provoked a strong enemy. In the 5th round, Ling Yunpo just left the field and saw a middle-aged man in a plain robe, with grey hair on his temples and a frosted face, quietly waiting. Ling Yunpo recognized who the other party was at a glance. Julanfan Hegai, who entered the sword way through martial arts, is a rare figure in the history of the entire cultivation world. It is said that he was originally a mortal swordsman. When he was young, he was competitive and invincible with his right-hand sword. Later, he was secretly plotted and injured his right arm, so he turned to practice left-hand sword and practiced from scratch to become invincible in the world. He occupied the position of the leader of the martial art world for 3 consecutive years, and his enemies were all over the rivers and lakes. One day, he finally invited a peerless master to defeat him on the spot and severely injured him. But the master saw that he was very courageous and finally chose to let him go. After the master left, all the enemies, big and small, rushed to surround that section of the sea and started a chaotic battle. Somehow, he was killed by that section of the sea from the Sea of Blood, and heard that his whole family had also died tragically at the hands of the enemy. So after hiding until the storm was over, he actually abandoned his hatred and ran straight to Shushan to become a disciple. Although Shushan accepts disciples without age restrictions, most of those who can pass the level are teenagers. The reason is that these people have just formed their bones and their will and spirit are the most abundant. If they wait until they are 30 or 40 years old, and experience women, alcohol and other things, their bones and spirit will not be so perfect. This section of the sea is also a wonder. In his 40s, his bones are intact, he doesn't like women, and he doesn't drink. In this way, he successfully passed the mountain sword test and successfully became a disciple of Shushan. Then, relying on his rich combat experience and strong fighting will, he practiced hard for many years and finally became a super sword cultivator. He ranked 2nd in the last Immortal Sword list, and his sword name is Kantai. Lin Yulanzhen had said before that this section of the sea was probably the most difficult enemy for Ling Yunpo to defeat in this session. The reason was that this person had a deep understanding of the sword, rich combat experience, and an extremely strong psychological quality. There was no flaw in his body. How could he start? This strongest enemy of this session happened to be encountered at the halftime stage. If he said that the organizer did not cheat in the draw, even he himself would not believe it. Ling Yunpo cursed the Shushan officials in his heart, and had to be perfect on the surface, and bowed his hands and said, "Senior brother Julan. Junior brother Lim. The middle-aged man waved his hands and said indifferently, "I know what you mean, no need to say more. Let's just fight directly, okay? Good sister." Ling Yunpo was helpless in his heart, and now he gritted his teeth and said, "Okay." As soon as the voice fell, he activated the first level of the Kingping sword, by with the 11th Kangul Yuan. The mist is hazy, and the smoke is floating like a mirage. As the chanting sounded, 1,000-mile thick fog rose and enveloped the entire venue. It was hazy and obscure, completely hiding the figures of the two. The audience outside immediately cursed. They had planned to watch a good show, but they didn't expect Ling Yunpo to use this trick again. They protested strongly, but they could do nothing. In the fog, there was nothing visible. Ling Yunpo wrote his sword in the fog, and his figure was very low, almost close to the ground. This was a kind of hidden sword technique that Lin Yuanzhen had taught him, which was best at flying silently in the dark. In addition, in this forbidden area, the perception of spiritual consciousness was suppressed, and only his spiritual consciousness could be expanded and attached to every drop of water in this fog. Every blade of grass, every grain of sand and every stone were clear in his eyes. In comparison, the other party couldn't see his fingers when he stretched out his hand, almost like a blind person. He circled around the field, but Juan Fanhai stood in the center, looking straight ahead, controlling his flying sword to keep still. Could it be that this guy couldn't see, so he simply remained unchanged in the face of all changes? Ling Yunpo was puzzled, and quietly flew to more than 20 meters behind him, but he still had no reaction and just stood there. Looking at the wooden back, Ling Yunpo suddenly felt that he was full of flaws. Why don't I use a sword to test it first? Thinking of this, he pinched the sword formula, and the thunder sword flew out of the sword box behind him, moving a large arc and attacking Juan Fanhai from behind. As the sword light was about to arrive, Juan Fanhai suddenly turned around and chanted, "Purple stars, wind rising Tiangan." As soon as the voice fell, a fairy sword appeared from his palm. It was Juan Fanhai's natal sword, the 10th level gold system, the Star Kang Iron Sword. The sword was dark all over, and suddenly turned sharply in the air, directly carrying the power of wind and thunder. Metal and iron collided, and there was a loud thunder. Ling Yunpo's thunder sword was chopped away by the starry blue iron sword at the first sight. This sword is sharp and hard, and its power is probably not inferior to that of the immortal sword. Ling Yunpo just thought about it, and saw that the blue iron sword seemed to have sensed it and immediately swooped down towards him along the original route of the flying sword. Not good. He quickly summoned a Kingping sword and blocked the attack of the blue iron sword in mid-air. The two swords suddenly collided, and each was shaken away by the other's strength. The blue iron sword did not retreat, and chopped down fiercely in the air again. Ding 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 ding, ding 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 ding. The two swords collided countless times in an instant, and sparks burst. In this vast fog, people outside could not see what happened inside, but only saw the thick fog stirring. Ling Yunpo retreated rapidly in the fog. The blue iron sword paused for a moment and slashed at his heart again. Ling Yunpo tried to block it with the Kingping sword, but was unable to resist its momentum, so he had to release the force upwards. The two swords rubbed against each other, flashing a string of brilliant sparks. Not bad swordsmanship. Juan Fanhai said indifferently, his voice echoing in the fog. Unfortunately, compared to Anzesu, it's still too inferior and too sloppy. With your strength, it's the best you can get into the top 50 of the sword list. It's impossible to get a few more places. It's ridiculous that those people are afraid that you will directly enter the top 10, and they actually use such despicable means to arrange for me to kill you here. Humph, it's really a mediocre person who worries too much. Juan Fanhai continued, his tone becoming more and more impatient. I want to break your life sword and let you go back and lie down for half a year with serious injuries. This will definitely not let me go. But your strength is so humble, and I can't let go and use it. I have to control the strength. It's really troublesome. You should admit defeat quickly and don't waste my time. This guy didn't stop mocking. The Kantai sword slashed and chopped, carrying the wind and thunder sword energy, domineering and unmatched. Ling Yunpo was caught in a dilemma and thought rapidly in his mind. He originally knew that the opponent was stronger than him, so he chose this hidden sword technique in order to avoid a head-on confrontation. Unexpectedly, he accidentally revealed his tracks in the previous sneak attack, and was chased and hit by the opponent's natal sword. He was tightly entangled and could not get rid of it for a while. If this goes on, not only will this hidden sword technique lose its original meaning, but he will also consume more energy than the opponent while controlling the sword and defending at the same time. In the way of sword fighting, the strong must use righteousness to bully the weak, and the weak must win by surprise. If he continues to be completely suppressed like this, I'm afraid that in the end he will not even have a chance to turn the tables. He was turning over ideas in his mind, and Juan van Hegiover was also experienced. Noticing that his reaction was a little slow, he accelerated the control of the flying sword to attack, not giving him time to breathe and think. Ling Yunpo struggled to hold on, and then quietly pinched the sword formula, activating the second level of the Kingping sword, after the rain in the empty mountain. Available tomorrow. Chapter 82 remarks on the release. It will be on the shelves tomorrow at 12 noon. There is a problem with this book at present. Many book friends said this is a mask-style book when promoting it to the outside world. Then they added a sentence in a self-righteous way, I actually don't read mask-style books, but I still recommend it to everyone. I don't know what to say. The biggest poison of the mask style is that some book friends think that girls like the character played by the protagonist, not the protagonist himself. This book uses the Kunlun mirror to erase this poison. The heroine actually doesn't like the character played by the hero. For example, Zhu Yinglyan hates Qiu Chang's Time's aura of a king, but as long as the aura dissipates, she will put away the thorns all over her body and show the demeanor of a little girl. For example, Zisu treats Ling Yunpo as an immature younger brother because of his occasional middle school words, but as long as the character of Bai is withdrawn, senior sister-in will find that this junior brother is not Jia Bai, and the originally pure sister-brother relationship will begin to sublimate. For example, Shildi admires the strong, she likes handsome and powerful people. Luo Yam's hypocritical personality is not in her eyes. Only when the personality is removed can Mishi's mate selection reaction be aroused. These are all plots clearly written in the original text. In order to prevent people from skipping and missing these descriptions, I also emphasized in the chapter introduction of chapter 2 that this book is not the mask flow of girls fall in love with masks. But there are still people outside saying this book is a mask flow. I wonder if these people are StarCraft players. Not to mention the at least 5 plot descriptions in the original text, how can they not see such a long paragraph at the end of chapter 2? Then I realized that these people really haven't read my book, even one chapter. At the beginning, when I didn't have time to apply these patches, someone asked me if it was considered a clone flow. I said it was not a clone, it was all played by the protagonist, so it was probably a mask flow. Then a reader gave me a popular science of the poison points of the mask flow, and I said I would make a patch, and changed the name to Blue Dye Flow to prevent preconceived ideas. However, there are a group of people who don't read my books at all. When they heard that the author said it was a mask style, they immediately spread the word outside. Yuju has published a new book, it's a mask style. Oh, I don't like to read mask style, but I still support it, please forward it. Then they started to spread rumors about the mask style. Black fans are a kind of black fan behavior. Speaking of this, I have to mention an author friend. It is obviously a space opera, but because the protagonist is born as an immortal king, a lot of people say it is a soldier king style and a white writer. The author was forced to explain everywhere that it is not a soldier king article, but he couldn't resist the public opinion, and there were still people spreading rumors outside that the author compromised for money and the soldier king article is really unbearable. You understand communication very well, right, black fans? Here is a standard version for you, please forward it. Yuju's new book Cultivating Immortality starts with time management is a canon scam style, inspired by Maxim Gorky's Damto. In order to save the world, the hero bravely stepped forward, pretending to be different characters and sneaking into various sects, deceiving the fairies of various sects to gain their trust, and collecting all the fragments of the sky repairing stone. In the end, he successfully repaired the sky and prevented the fate of the world from being destroyed. However, this hero did not get the treatment he deserved. After saving the world, he was caught by the fairies and punished in turn for trying to steal the treasure of the sect, and tortured day and night. Just like the tragic ending of Damko, humans are not grateful to the savior, but his spirit will continue to be passed on. You can take a screenshot or type it by hand, and remember to delete the words in brackets. Chapter 83. Having many cards means you can do whatever you want. When the forbidden method was activated, water-based sword energy appeared out of thin air, long and sharp, like slanting wind and drizzle, and found an extremely tricky angle to shoot towards Juan van Hegiover. When it was about to reach his back, Juan van Hegiover seemed to notice something, and another sword energy rushed into the sky. It was his other signature sword Tianfen Kailanjin sword that was unsheathed, spinning and running behind him like a full moon, blocking all the sword energy. Ling Yunpo's fingering changed continuously, and the water-based sword energy suddenly went to the left, and then to the right, and the trajectory was completely unpredictable. Juanfenhai smiled coldly, just using the tiefling sword to protect his body, and took a passive defensive posture. This old thing. Ling Yunpo cursed inwardly. Now that he was completely suppressed from the front, he had to rely on sneak attacks from the side to disrupt the offensive. Juanfenhai took such a posture, which clearly showed that he saw through this point and wanted to be stable, and did not intend to give him any chance. He was thinking nervously, only to hear Juanfenhai snort coldly, and said, HMPH, I didn't expect you could force me to use the Tiefling Engine sword, I really underestimated you. Your water-based natal sword, and the gold-based flying sword at the beginning, must be 10th rank immortal swords. Ling Yunpo did not answer, only to hear Juanfenhai say again, what a pity. It's a pity that Su Jian has been in seclusion for so many years, but has let the beautiful jade of his disciples be covered in dust. Ling Yunpo was about to speak, only to hear Juanfenhai say again, don't get me wrong. The beautiful jade of his disciples does not refer to you, but to your senior sister Zizhuan. With her qualifications, if she had not lacked the guidance of the master, her cultivation would not have made any progress. Why should he devote so much effort to you? Although you have a talent in swordsmanship, it is not even 1% of hers. It's ridiculous that some people compare you with her, calling them the big and small killer stars of King Luo Peak. Are you worthy of it? This guy was contemptuous of her and kept talking endlessly. Ling Yunpo's head swelled when he heard this, and he was so angry that he could only yell shut up and shoot out the Kingping sword and Li's sword. Juanfenhai sneered, come on. He immediately shot out his two swords to resist the attacks of the Kingping sword and Li's sword respectively. Ling Yunpo's mind sank, knowing that the opponent's Xing Do Kantai sword and Tiefling Engine sword were both 10th level immortal swords, and their quality was not inferior to his Kingping and Li's. But the opponent's cultivation was at the water level, and the pure essence attached to the sword was more than 100 times his own true energy. It would be too disadvantageous for him to fight him head-on. If he didn't use his trump card, there was really no chance of winning. After careful consideration, Ling Yunpo secretly pinched his fingers, bent his middle finger, and recited to himself, the vastness is dark, the North Sea in thunder. This is the North Pole thunder of the Five Thunders orthodox law, which belongs to the Taoist method of the clone Qiu Chain Tian, and it is not easy to use. Now, we have to make decisions in a hurry. For the sake of competing for the ranking and for the sake of my senior sister, I can't care about so much. Ling Yunpo opened his hands, clasped the black lightning in his palms, and used the thick fog forbidden method to cover up the traces. The Thunder Sword was fighting with the Kantai sword in front. Because of the difference in the grade of the true Qi on the sword, it was chopped by the opponent and was in a mess. Then it cried in Ling Yunpo's mind, Master Sword Master, wow! How can this 11 Sui level fight against the water level? How can it have a chance of winning? The other party has pure true essence, and I only have true Qi. Isn't this bullying the weak? Don't panic. Ling Yunpo said in a low voice in the sea of consciousness, watch me defeat the enemy with thunder magic. Juanfenhai on the opposite side used the Kantai sword to repel the thunder sword, paused slightly in the air, and then shot fiercely in his direction. The Tiefling sword entangled the Kingping sword tightly on the periphery, making it difficult for it to break free and return for help. Ling Yunpo smiled coldly, raised his hands, and shot out the Arctic Thunder. These two groups of Arctic Thunder are the thunder of the North Abyss. Although it looks dark and inconspicuous, the power inside is extremely terrifying. Under the cover of fog, Juanfenhai had no idea. He just controlled the starry blue iron sword and stabbed it towards the position of Ling Yunpo in his memory. As a result, the flying sword directly hit the two balls of lightning. The first shot stopped the rapidly shooting starry blue iron sword, and all the light around the sword was scattered. The second shot hit again, and the blue iron sword was instantly smashed away, like a cannonball, directly piercing through the venue restriction, and it flew to an unknown place. Juanfenhai was still standing proudly, but the next second his face suddenly changed, and he vomited a large mouthful of blood. It was obvious that his natal sword had suffered a severe blow, and his bones and mind had suffered a lot of damage. You. He opened his eyes wide with anger, his expression was weak, and his face was half horrified and half unbelievable. What kind of immortal sword forbidden method is that? It's so domineering, no comment. Ling Yunpo smiled faintly and pointed his sword over. Juan Van Hai still wanted to resist and used the Taoist method of the Skywind sword to delay time, but his natal sword was severely damaged, and naturally he was also injured. How could he defend himself? He was immediately pierced through the chest by the thunder sword and was sent out of the field by the restriction. Finally won. Ling Yunpo also breathed a sigh of relief and lifted the green mist covering the Kanliu arm, causing the fog to dissipate. This battle was really difficult. The sneak attack was discovered at the beginning, and there were dangers in the middle. If he hadn't taken the risk to use Qiu Chain Time's trip to kill with one blow, he would definitely have been defeated. Kunlun Tai King sect focuses on refining Qi, and Shushan King sect specializes in sword techniques. Although the two sects belong to the ancient teaching of N, the true Qi cultivated by their respective techniques is different. The Qi refining technique of Shushan King sect is to use Han Hunyuan's Hila. The Hunyuan true Qi refined by breathing is tough and tenacious, which is very suitable for activating flying swords. However, if it is used to activate the thunder method, the purity is not as good as the pure immortal energy of Nine Heavens pure and subtle entry mantra, and the power is also significantly reduced. If it were not for the fear that the alien true energy would leave traces of the scene, Ling Yunpo would have used the pure immortal energy to release the thunder directly, and there would be no need to use two shots. It is estimated that one shot would have directly broken the Xing Chen Kantai sword. Even so, the audience around the duel scene looked at him as if they were looking at a demon. The one opposite was the second Kantai sword immortal on the immortal sword list, Juan Van Hai. A super strong man who has reached the peak of the Watfu stage and has half a foot in the threshold of the Golden Core. How could he be defeated by this young man who is not even in the top 50 of the immortal sword list? Thinking of this guy's sister, the notorious King Luo Peak Killer God Mowing Sword Immortal, it is not difficult for everyone to come to such a conclusion. The Mowing Sword Immortal must have given this junior brother some killer mace, which allowed him to kill Juan Van Hai instantly on the field, otherwise there is no explanation at all. Thinking of this, there was silence inside and outside the arena. No matter who was dissatisfied with the result of the duel, or had doubts, they could only keep it to themselves and dare not speak out. Otherwise, if it was heard by the Sword Immortal Mona, what would happen? I'm afraid that all my brothers and sisters would suffer. Above the duel, the supervising Jindan Shinran was also quite depressed. He naturally knew that Juan Van Hai's appearance was not a coincidence, but was deliberately arranged by some anti-King Luo Peak forces. The purpose was to use the second place on the immortal sword list to intercept and kill the kid named Ling Yunpo, at least to cut off his natal sword, so that he could not participate in the subsequent duels. Unexpectedly, this good plan of killing with a borrowed knife did not kill the person, but broke the sword instead, which was really a case of shooting oneself in the foot. Juan Van Hai is not without power behind him. His teacher is Luo Bihi, the peak master of the Wanglong peak lineage. The natal sword of his disciple was severely damaged. How could the peak master sit still? I will definitely come and settle accounts with someone as soon as possible. This is not good, don't find me and ask me for the crime of failing to supervise and stop it. The Jindan Shinran frowned, and then hurriedly announced the result of the game, and then rode on the sword light and fled away. Off the court, the defeated Juan Van Hai was pale and livid. He stood there for a moment, and then walked towards Ling Yunpo aggressively. What is your trick? He asked. Is it the forbidden method of the water-based fairy sword? Or the forbidden method of the gold-based fairy sword? Could it be the thunder method you practiced extra? No comment. Ling Yunpo waved his hand and said impatiently, I have another sword fight next, how can I leak information now? Chapter 84 My senior sister is too protective. Juan Van Hai looked extremely bad. He leaned in close and whispered, do you really think that you can keep the second place on the immortal sword ranking after me? My position is not so easy to hold. Let alone, the 3rd to 6th place on the immortal sword ranking after me, Lin Juanzhen, Yuan Chenyu, Sima Chang'an and Bishan, who doesn't want to go one step further on the list? They couldn't beat me before, let alone challenge your senior sister, but now it's you who sits in this position. When the time comes, you will be defeated in a round-robin battle. How long do you think you can hide it? That doesn't matter. Ling Yun had many cards up his sleeve and was not afraid at all. He just said righteously, Brother Juan, don't ask too many questions. I'm a sword immortal, we should move forward with swords and kill all the demons that block the way. As for the demon, no matter how sharp his swordsmanship is or how powerful his Taoism is, can I still get around it? Brother, you care too much about the so-called intelligence, which is a sign of hesitation and fearlessness to move forward. This is inferior. Unyielding personality, synchronization value +1. Unyielding character, synchronization value +1. Unyielding character, synchronization value +1. Every time Ling Yunpo said a word, the synchronization value of Kunlun mirror increased by 1. Juan Fan Hai almost vomited blood. Just as he was about to explode, he saw a flash of light in the distance. Zhesu, who had just finished fighting on the field, had already rushed in front of the two of them with a murderous aura rising to the sky. He pointed the frost sword at Juan Fan Hai and shouted, "Juan Fan Hai, if you dare to hurt my junior brother, I will definitely pierce your scapula with my sword and throw you to the 9th heaven to suffer the pain of the strong wind." Juan Fan Hai's eyes twitched, and he said coldly, "Zhesu, what does it have to do with you that I am fighting with your junior brother?" Zhesu rushed to Ling Yunpo, grabbed his right hand and probed with his spiritual sense, and his anxious concern was beyond words. Juan Fan Hai stood opposite, and saw the expression of senior sister Anne, and was also shocked. Wasn't this killing god of King Luo Peak born cold-blooded and ruthless? How could he show such an indecisive little woman's expression? Could it be that he was possessed? After the spiritual consciousness carefully explored and found that the little junior brother's body was indeed not injured at all, Zhesu breathed a sigh of relief. Turning around, he raised his eyebrows coldly, and turned back into the familiar look of the god of death, and said to Juan Fan Hai in a cold voice, "I didn't expect that you would be so sensible as to hold back this time. But let's put things aside. As for the revenge plan to kill junior brother Lin, if I have time in the future, I will ask everyone at Wanglong Peak for advice one by one." Juan Fan Hai laughed angrily. "Zhesu, you're probably too murderous and have gone astray. My Wanglong Peak and your King Luo Peak have never had any grudges, and your junior brother has nothing to do with me before. Why should I look for an opportunity to kill him? The one who is really against you is someone else. Don't you have any idea who is playing tricks in the sword duel drawing? The one who just dueled with me and deliberately dragged the fight to the end was you Qian Chao from your Wanglong Peak." Zhesu scolded him angrily, "And you still say it has nothing to do with your Wanglong Peak? Junior brother's you? This is impossible." Juan Fan Hai's face suddenly changed. He was in danger while training outside last month and was seriously injured. He is still recovering in the depths of Wanglong Peak. He didn't even sign up for this sect competition. Whether it is true or not, Juan Fan Hai, you will know when you go back and ask. Zhesu didn't say much to him, and grabbed Ling Yunpo's hands. "Junior brother, let's go." The two of them rode away with sword lights, leaving Juan Fan Hai standing there, his face turning pale and blue. After a while, he ignored his serious injuries and tried his best to summon the severely damaged Xing Chen Kang iron sword, and also rode away with a sword light. On the way back to King Luo Peak, Zhesu flew his sword above the clouds, his expression solemn, and said to Ling Yunpo, "Junior brother, fortunately you were not injured this time, otherwise if something happened, I really don't know how to explain to master. Although you lost this sword duel, it was not unfair. Your Juan Fan Hai is second on the immortal sword list. The Wafu realm has reached perfection, and you have 2 immortal swords in your hands. You were a top-notch strong man under the golden core of Shushan. Even if I were to fight him, I wouldn't dare to say that I would win. After losing to him this time, you should go back to King Luo Peak to recuperate and avoid being targeted. When the sect competition is about to end, I will find an evenly matched opponent on the immortal sword list and let you challenge and kill him. Senior sister, I won." Ling Yunpo touched his nose and said, "Well, it's good to win. Losing to Juan Fan Hai is nothing. You will always have a chance to win next time." Zhesu talked ramble English, and suddenly came to his senses. "One, did you win? Who did you win?" "I won Juan Fan Hai," Ling Yunpo said helplessly. With a whoosh, the sword light controlled by Zhesu suddenly lost control, and the two of them suddenly rushed into the clouds. Within 10 seconds, the two of them came out from the bottom of the clouds again. Their clothes and hair were wet by the water vapor in the clouds. Zhesu opened her eyes wide, stared at her junior brother, and asked in horror, "You won the fight just now?" "Yes," Ling Yunpo said. "You won Juan Fan Hai?" "Yes." "How did you win?" "With a sword." Ling Yunpo vaguely passed it over. Zhesu was silent for a moment, and suddenly stretched out her slender hand and pressed it against Ling Yunpo's forehead. "It's not hot, and it doesn't sound like you're talking nonsense," she murmured, her eyes red again. "You really didn't lie to me?" "No. This is true." Zhesu wanted to say it was unbelievable. However, after thinking carefully, hasn't my junior brother done enough unexpected things since he entered the sect? Killing the losers with a sword, and quickly entering the marrow cleansing, which one is not incredible? In the past, the master often said that geniuses with extraordinary talents are everywhere in this world. Junior brother is a sword genius, and he can defeat Yuan van Hagi, who is second on the immortal sword list. What's so surprising about that? Thinking of this, Zisu's protective mentality broke out, and he immediately threw away all rationality. My junior brother is the best in the world, no one can compare to him. Junior brother, you won very well. After tucking her wet hair a little, senior sister smiled and said, this way, you will be the second on the immortal sword ranking. The third is Lin Yuanzhen. We have informed you in advance that he will definitely not attack you. The fourth is Yuan Yu. She is quite thoughtful and will not risk angering me by challenging you for a seat. Yuan van Hagi must be shocked and frightened to be defeated by you this time. With his personality, he will not rush to fight for the second seat before he is sure of winning. But you have to be wary of the seats behind. There are dozens of people. It is inevitable that someone will be bold enough to test your strength later. As she said that, she made a downward cutting gesture, and a murderous look flashed between her eyebrows. In the next sword draw, you must win cleanly and neatly, and kill all those who should be killed by your own sword, and establish the majesty of the second sword fairy as soon as possible. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 85. Sister Am's background information. Thanks to the Alliance leader, the Fallen Song for the extra update. As we all know, the result of the draw in the Shushang competition is completely random. The fact that Ling Yunpo could fight Yuan van Hagi so well was the result of randomness by the sect's top leaders. However, the final result of the sword fight surprised most people. The strange thing is that because the green mist veils the blue mountains blocks the divine sense, most people have no way of knowing how Ling Yunpo defeated Yuan van Hagi. So far, except for the battles against Lu Zixing and Yuan van Hagi, Ling Yunpo's historical sword fight records have all been one-hit kills. Lu Zixing has fallen. According to Ziyangfeng's private disclosure, the wounds on his body seemed to be traces caused by lightning. This statement was also confirmed by Yuan van Hagi. Although he himself did not utter a word, countless viewers witnessed the fact that the Xingdou iron sword was directly knocked away by the opponent and suffered severe damage. The natal sword is connected to the key and soul of the sword master himself. As long as it is not broken or damaged, it can be repaired. According to the steward of the weapon pavilion who was in charge of repairing it, the Xingdou iron sword, which was damaged in origin, was indeed damaged by lightning magic. It was no secret that Ling Yunpo used two immortal swords. One of them seemed to be the legendary Kingping sword. According to the forbidden method of Baiwei Kangyuan, it can be inferred that it was a 10th level water system. The other flying sword had never appeared in the world before. The power of thunder and lightning must be related to this flying sword. So at the scene of the competition, someone wrote down its appearance characteristics and then went to the weapon pavilion to check the atlas of all weapons in the world. As a result, it was finally found out that it was the flying sword of ancient Kunlun. The so-called ancient Kunlun refers to the remnant forces left in the Kunlun mountains after the destruction of the main body of the sect about 9 to 8,000 years ago, which is the predecessor of the current Kunlun Taiking sect. According to the records in the classics, this sword is called Jiutian Lizi sword, which is the flying sword used by the ancient Kunlun Putinren. It is said that it was made by collecting western Zhengjin from the extreme west and refining it with thunder for 9,981 days at the golden summit of Kunlun Tianzhu. It is well known that the Tiangan sword forging method only appeared after the demise of the sect. Before that, all flying swords were immortal swords. The strong ones, such as the Qilite splitting sword, could destroy the world in the hands of immortals. The weak ones, such as the Xingdou Kantai sword, were used by the foundation building level rookies to fight each other. Therefore, the strength gap between immortal swords can be very different, and there is no quantitative judgment standard. As for the 11th level immortal sword in the market, it is just a joke. The 9 Sky Thunder sword, the classics have never recorded whether it is powerful, but judging from Ling Yunpo's performance in these few duels, its Taoism is strong enough, and it should be in the upper middle level among the 10th level flying swords. It is envious, but the fate of Ziyun Lu Zixing is here, and now Ling Yunpo has defeated Yuan van Hagi, which has proved that he is not a soft persimmon that is easy to squeeze. Therefore, in the next few sword duels, Ling Yunpo's opponents were not only noobs who were not on the immortal sword ranking, but also rushed to admit defeat as soon as they appeared on the stage, without even giving him a chance to draw his sword. Knowing that this was another random result of the people above, Ling Yunpo sighed in his heart. When I showed weakness before, I arranged for strong people to intercept and kill me. Now that I have revealed a trump card and proved my strength, the lottery arranged for these trash to play. Don't you want to give me a chance to establish my authority? These people are really painstaking. Thinking of this, Ling Yunpo became a little bored again. The Shushan King sect, the atmosphere within this sect is really a bit shady. The lower level is disorderly and openly fighting, and the upper level is treacherous and secretly fighting. Can I really seek immortality by practicing Taoism with this bunch of insects? Well, but if you think about it carefully, the other two sects, Kunlun King sect and Pengliu King temple, may not be harmonious and blessed places. Not to mention Kunlun, the two brothers are still lying dead in the secret realm of the palace. Pengliu is mainly a mountainous area, and everyone is guarding their own piece of land, so the atmosphere is much more peaceful. Even so, Luo Yan was really enlightened by some of the secret scandals of the sect mentioned by senior brother Ling Yushu after he got drunk. Where there are people, there is the world of martial arts. This is really a wise saying. After the sword competition today, Zisu brought Ling Yunpo back to the King Luo Peak Taoist temple, pressed the sword light down to the ground, and said, "By the way, junior brother, you won the second place on the immortal sword ranking. This good news must be told to Master." Ling Yunpo was shocked. What? Master came out of retreat? He followed in Zisu's footsteps, passed through the Taoist temple's outer hall, corridors, inner rooms, and secret rooms, and came to the deep rock belly of King Luo Peak. Zisu knelt down on the cushion, and Ling Yunpo also took an old cushion from the dusty shelf next to him. Then he knelt down in the same way. Zisu put her hands together, closed her eyes and prayed. Her lips moved slightly, as if she was really communicating with the Seven Killings Master Su Jian, who was in seclusion behind the stone wall. Ling Yunpo looked at senior sister from the corner of his eyes, and then he also put his hands together and pretended to pray with his eyes closed. Of course, there was no response. Zisu spoke silently in her heart, and her eyelashes trembled slightly. Ling Yunpo noticed that senior sister Am's eyes were actually smaller than junior sister's Yu's, but her eyelashes were unexpectedly long, which made her look bright and charming. Her figure was also more graceful and charming. Speaking of which, most of the cultivators of Kunlun King sect, both men and women, are thin and well proportioned, and it is rare to see strong or tall men. The Shushan King sect, probably because of the emphasis on physique, there are many tall and strong men among the male cultivators, and most of the female cultivators are also outstanding, white, big and long. However, probably because they are worried that it will affect the speed of drawing the sword, at least Ling Yunpo has never heard of any fellow disciple having a Taoist partner. Even if there is a Taoist partner, it is definitely not convenient for people to know. However, fortunately, senior sister is still single. Ling Yunpo, who lives with her day and night, can fully confirm this. After Zisu finished praying, she stood up and motioned Ling Yunpo to leave with her. Ling Yunpo was speechless. She really just came here to tell the master. As for whether the master can hear it or not, we don't need to care, right? Ling Yunpo, who was worried, followed senior sister out of the underground, and after returning to the Taoist temple, he asked, "Senior sister, how long will the master be in seclusion?" "I don't know." Zisu shook her head, "But it shouldn't be too long." "Did the master talk to you just now?" Ling Yunpo asked tentatively. "No." Zisu blinked and said mysteriously, "But I believe the master will soon come out of seclusion." "This is my intuition." Ling Yunpo was speechless. "What a fucking intuition, senior sister, you are not practicing magic, where does the intuition come from?" The two came to the back of the Taoist temple and sat in the pavilion beside the clear spring. Ling Yunpo pointed to the inscribed rock on the other side of the stream and said with a smile, "There are 2 lines of poetry there, and I don't know who wrote them. It should be written by Master." Zisu said casually. Ling Yunpo, "No way, Su Jian, the #1 killer in Shushan, would actually have such a sad feeling of this hatred will never end." "Master, what kind of person is he?" Ling Yunpo asked cautiously. "Master." Zisu also showed a somewhat sad smile and whispered, "To me, he is like a father." The first day of subscription was less than 2,000, and there is no need for everyone to analyze why it is lagging. I have already become a Buddhist. It is necessary to know that when a practitioner has achieved the state of non-possession, he deeply condemns the sins of the state of non-possession, and then abandons the state of non-possession and observes the state of neither existence nor non-existence. Always think about it, concentrate on it, and make continuous efforts. His mind is free and lives in the cause. Later, suddenly, the real state of concentration is born, and there is no appearance of existence or non-existence. It is completely silent and utterly extinguished. The mind is unshakable, tranquil and pure, like the state of nirvana. Whether it is a high order or a low order, there is no need to think about it, only a subtle thought remains. Whether you become a god or fail, it still exists in your heart, but you are not attached to it. If it exists or not, if it is gone or not gone, it is neither thought nor non-thought. Amitabha. Chapter 86 is the surname Anasu. In the pavilion beside King Quine Creek, Mzisu lowered his eyes to gaze at the gurgling water and whispered his family story. I was born in a mountain village in Guangling County, Yangzhou. My mother is a widow in the village, and my father died before I was born, so life was very difficult. But, since I was conscious, Master has often come to my house to visit my mother and me. Every time he comes, he brings some money to help us, so that our life is not too tight. Ling Yunpa listened with interest, and realized that Su Jian was not a murderous devil obsessed with kendo, he also possessed the kindness and warmth of ordinary people. Mzisu continued, every time my mother refused to take the master's money, saying that he didn't owe us mother and daughter. But the master would always find a way to stuff the money so that my mother couldn't refuse. Sometimes he clearly took it away, and in the blink of an eye the money would appear on the stove, next to the pillow, or in the pile of clothes. When my mother saw the money left behind, she would sigh helplessly. Ling Yunpo echoed and sighed, alas, it's not easy for my senior sister's family either. In fact, it's more than just poverty. Mzisu said sadly, if a widow doesn't have her own family and husband in the village, people will gossip about her and even bully her. Sometimes, the unemployed hooligans in the village would collectively run to the outside of my house, saying some obscene words that were unbearable to the ears, and laughing wildly. My mother would hold me tightly in her arms to prevent me from hearing those dirty words. How hateful. Ling Yunpo immediately glared and said indignantly, if I were there, no matter how many of them there were, I would pick up a hatchet and rush out to kill all those rubbish who bullied the orphan girl and the widowed mother. Unyielding character, synchronization value +1. Junior brother, your personality is exactly the same as Master's. Mzisu laughed. When Master learned about this, he immediately took up his sword and went out, visiting every household and killing all those hooligans one by one. Great. Ling Yunpo clapped his hands in praise, but complained in his heart. To recap, this Su Jian is still a murderous devil. But from that time on, there was a rift between mother and master. Mzisu continued to recall, everyone in the village avoided our family, and even took a detour and they met on the road. My mother was very sad, not because her reputation in the village declined, but because she felt that master regarded mortals as pigs and dogs, and would sooner or later become alienated from us. Master had a few quarrels with mother because of this, and finally decided to take me to cultivate immortality and secretly teach me the Shushan sword controlling technique without telling the sect. Ling Yunpo pondered in silence, and suddenly felt something strange. He originally thought that Su Jian was attracted by Mzisu's attitude for cultivation, so he came to take care of her family's financial situation. But listening to the description of the senior sister, it seems that Su Jian and Mzisu's mother have some kind of close relationship, so he chose to accept her as a disciple. Sister, I have a question. He said carefully, is there such a possibility that maybe your father is not dead, he is just trying to win your mother's recognition, such as giving money to your family, helping your mother vent her anger, and accepting you as his apprentice? Mzisu looked at him silently, and smiled after a while. Junior brother, you are talking nonsense again. Master's surname is Su, and mine is Ab, how can we be father and daughter? Then what is your mother's name? Ling Yunpo asked. My mother's name is Nsuzu. Mzisu replied. So, you actually took your mother's surname? Ling Yunpo said immediately. What else? Mzisu looked at him with wide eyes. My father died before I was born, so it's normal for me to take my mother's last name? What I mean is... Ling Yunpo was confused by her logic and finally came to his senses. Maybe your mother refused to forgive your father, so she let you take her last name, junior brother. Mzisu was silent again, and said after a long time, don't guess. If what you said is possible, then master should stay at home to accompany my mother, instead of visiting her every month. He ignores his wife and daughter, is obsessed with swordsmanship, and only comes back to visit for a few days perfunctorily. How can such a person be my father? Ling Yunpo was speechless. From Nzisu's slightly angry words, he already understood what senior sister meant. Su Jian can only be her master, not her father. She was resisting to admit this fact. But this was after all Sister Ram's family affair, so it was not easy for him to ask further. So Ling Yunpo decisively changed the subject and asked, "What happened later, master and your mother, later?" Nzisu paused for a moment and said, "My mother passed away." "Passed away?" "Yes, the normal lifespan has come to an end." Nzisu whispered, "Master accompanied me to bury my mother, and then took me back to Shushan to formally enter. As a result, we were ambushed by the elders of the demon sect on the way. Master was seriously injured. He returned to the mountain to arrange my entry, and then hurriedly closed the death gate." Ling Yunpo thought to himself that this was the case. In fact, with Su Jian's status as a Yuning elder, if he had taken Nzisu to Shushan early, he might have been the second Shiluli. His father was the Shushan god of killing, who would dare to mess with this young lady. But Sister Ram's childhood life was too different from that of Miss Shi. She spent her childhood in the countryside, and after adulthood, she learned swordsmanship from Su Jian alone. After reaching the Wafu stage, her mother passed away normally. Su Jian, who was no longer bound by the secular world, took her back to Shushan, but they were ambushed on the way and went into seclusion again after returning to the mountain. It was a life full of twists and turns, and she suffered endless hardships. Senior Sister Ram, I should give you the template of my unyielding character. Let's not talk about this. Nzisu suddenly smiled, and the depression on her face was swept away. Master will definitely be able to come out of seclusion smoothly. Let's not talk about the past. Today, we should celebrate for my junior brother to take the second place on the Immortal Sword ranking. She waved her hand as if it were a magic trick, and the frost sword turned into a sword light and came out with a plate and a wine pot. Ling Yunpo was a little dumbfounded. The wine and side dishes were all ready, and senior sister came prepared. Nzisu picked up the wine pot, tilted the thin mouth, and poured the wine into the cup. Amber color, fragrant orchid fragrance, it is the spiritual wine Yumikun produced in Shushan, which is very valuable. There were 8 red fruits on the plate, which were rosy and plump, looking like small tomatoes, but with a strange fragrance. The frost sword was gently waved, and all the red fruits were split in 2, turning into 16 petals of equal size. Ling Yunpo picked up a petal and ate it. He felt that it was sweet in the mouth and his tongue was full of saliva, as if he was swallowing spiritual liquid, with an endless aftertaste. He took another sip, and the wine was long-lasting, but not intoxicating, just refreshing and refreshing, making his mind seem much clearer. In his sight, Senior Sister Ram, who continued to pour wine for him, became more and more gentle and lovely, making it difficult for him to look away. Chapter 87 Sisters Yu suddenly realized Zhu Yinlian, Nzisu, Shiluli. 3 girls, each with a different personality. Junior Sisters Yu Yinlian is currently the easiest woman to capture. She is engaged to her Taoist partner, and she is strong-willed and unwilling to fall behind. With this, I can easily influence and control her. Moreover, the marriage with the Zhu family of Tianan will bring the most considerable benefits in the long run. If I have to choose one of the 3 from a purely utilitarian perspective, I would choose her. Senior Sister Nzisu is the woman I admire most. She is tenacious, powerful, sweet inside and sassy outside. Of course, the most important thing is that she treats her junior brother wholeheartedly. If I have to choose one of the 3 from a rational perspective, I would choose her. Miss Shiluli is a woman I can't do anything about. She is innocent, clean, a super rich woman, and I don't know what she thinks about all day long. But the strange thing is that when I am with her, I always feel like I am in my first love. If I am dominated by hormones and have to choose one of the 3, I would choose her. Of course, the truth is that it is not necessary to choose one of the 3, but that I have no intention of choosing. Fake is fake after all, even if there is affection, it will not become true. There is only one thing that is eternal and unchanging, that is, I am the man of destiny. Are you done? Kumlinjing asked helplessly. This guy is not only good at deceiving his master, senior sister, and junior sister, but now he even deceives himself, which really makes her amazed. However, it is precisely because of his superb driving skills that Kumlinjing is looking forward to seeing how wonderful his expression will be when he flips over. He repaired the sky and saved the world, and Kumlinjing has given him all kinds of peerless talents as a reward. He deceived the girl's sincerity, and Kumlinjing will also let him flip over at the critical moment as a punishment. The righteous A. Jin will never reward merits without rewards, nor will he punish with merits. Okay. Ling Yunpa restrained his emotions and said indifferently, read the file. Point 1. Kunlun Tai King Sect, Jin Line. Character Identity. Kyo Chains Iron. Mirror Flower Water Moon template is overwritten, and is traveling through time and space. After putting on Kyo Chains Iron's invincible aura, he calmly walked out of the cave. In terms of set landscape, Kunlun Snow Ridge is undoubtedly the most monotonous. Looking around, it is either the sky or ice and snow. Looking at it for a long time will make people dizzy. Therefore, most of the Kunlun monks are otakus and housewives who can stay in the cave for several years without going out. Zhu Yingyan is quite special. In addition to breathing and refining ki, he also takes time to practice sword controlling and Taoism, so he will not live in the cave for a long time. Kyo Chain Time looked down and saw Zhu Yingyan standing at the door in front of the cave, competing in swordsmanship with his third junior brother Guanzhen. After several rounds, Yu Jian finally broke through the blockade of Tyrant Sword and sent the tip of the sword to Guanzhen's throat. I lost. Guanzhen said coldly. He stretched out his hand to recall the kicks in Tyrant Sword, turned around and left indifferently. Kyo Chain Time was speechless watching from the side. After Guanzhen left, he came to Zhu Yingyan and asked, another sword fight? Zhu Yingyan glanced at him and explained, junior brother Guan lost to me last time and was not convinced, so we had another fight. Kyo Chain Time understood, of course, what junior sister Zhu meant was I didn't go looking for him, so he smiled and said, I didn't expect junior brother Guan to be so strong-willed. Ha ha. Zhu Yingyan sneered, you obviously can't beat him, but you still come to challenge, it's annoying, right? Kyo Chain Time. This was said without a beginning or an end. Fortunately, Kyo Chain Time was also a smart person. He immediately understood that Zhu Yingyan was hinting at the fact that she'd frequently challenged him to sword fighting before, so he smiled and said, junior sister is so determined to seek the truth, how can senior brother hate her? When these words fell into Zhu Yingyan's ears, combined with Kyo Chain Time's invincible personality, they immediately changed their meaning. It felt like the mockery and pity of a strong man. Thinking of the fact that he had never defeated him once in the previous sword-controlling competition, Zhu Yingyan began to feel angry and got angry. He simply pulled out the Yujie sword and said, brother, can you teach me again? Kyo Chain Time was stunned for a moment and said, it's not convenient, brother, do you look down on me? Zhu Yingyan became more and more angry. It's really not like that. Kyo Chain Time saw that his junior sister was starting to be crazy again and couldn't listen at all. He could only sigh and say, I feel very good today. If you fight with me and lose too badly, don't let your inner demon take advantage of you again. Invincible character, synchronization value +1. Come on. Zhu Yingyan said angrily. Soon, Kyo Chain Time proved that what he said was true. He won so many games in the Shushan competition and even defeated Fan Hegai, the second-level sword at the Immortal Sword ranking. At this time, his momentum was in full swing and his condition was simply too good. The Jade Dragon Sword collided with the Yujie Sword several times in the air, and easily defeated the opponent's sword path. Zhu Yingyan gritted her teeth and urged the Yujie Sword. Just as she was about to rise up again, she was hit by the Yulong Sword at a weak point and flew backwards unwillingly again. How is it? Kyo Chain Time did not attack, but asked leisurely. Invincible character, synchronization value +1. Zhu Yingyan silently recalled the Yujie Sword and asked expressionlessly, you and I have similar truty strengths. Yulong was able to knock my Yujie away because of the angle of force. Yes. Kyo Chain Time was a little surprised, so he explained to her, look. When I use the ki to connect and urge the flying sword to cut diagonally, I'm actually applying force to the hilt. In this way, there is a torque, the so-called torque. The mechanism is, he explained the mechanical principles of sword control in a simple and easy to understand way, and finally said, these principles are mentioned in Rinyu Sword Art Miscellaneous Essays. You can go to the Sutra Library to borrow it and read it. Rinyu Sword Art Miscellaneous Essays was written by a sword immortal of the ancient Chanzhou. Although it was collected by the Three Pure Ones, it was neither a ki refining technique nor a Taoist technique, so Kunlun naturally classified it as a miscellaneous book. Considering that there are hundreds of thousands of miscellaneous books in the Kunlun Sutra Library, how can ordinary cultivators know about it? Only by chance. It is the Shushan Shanking sect that attaches great importance to the inheritance of swordsmanship, so all the classics related to swordsmanship will be picked out for reference when each peak improves the swordsmanship of the school. Zhu Yingyan secretly memorized the title of the book, and was also extremely shocked. In addition to daily breathing and refining, practicing Taoism and swordsmanship, and going out for experience, senior brother Kyo actually has time to read this kind of miscellaneous books. Damn. This bastard senior brother, why is he so good? Invincible character, synchronization value +1. Where does he get so much time? Thinking of this, Zhu Yingyan suddenly had an epiphany and woke up suddenly. In the past, her way of chasing Kyo Chang's time was to ignore everything and rush forward blindly. For example, when I lost to my senior brother in swordplay, I practiced swordplay for 6 hours a day, and if I couldn't do it, I would practice for 7 or 8 hours. The result was that I was left behind by Kyo Chang's iron. I could fight back and forth before, but now I can't even take a few moves. However, thinking carefully, could it be that there is something wrong with the way I chased him? How does senior brother Kyo arrange his time? When does he breathe and refine his ki? When does he study Taoism? When does he study swordplay? When does he go out to practice? Why can he crush me in all aspects? Does he have any neat time management methods? Thinking of this, Zhu Yingyan's 7 orifices and exquisite heart started to work, and he realized that he had gone astray before. Only by knowing yourself and the enemy can you win 100 battles. How can you win if you don't even know how the opponent practices and just chase and rush? I want to observe my senior brother carefully to see how he arranges his 12 hours a day. Chapter 88 Sisters Use Observation Diary. Kyo Chang's iron felt something was wrong. He couldn't explain it, but he just felt like he was being spied on. Could it be that my identity as a spy was discovered by the Kunlun sect boss? Impossible. I don't have any power behind me, and I am a mortal who joined the Kunlun sect. My family background is clean and flawless. How could I possibly attract the attention of the sect's top leaders? He flew to the extreme west, the edge of the Pamir Mountains, and began to continue studying the 5 thunders. Among the 4 thunders currently on hand, Jade Pivot Thunder is the most convenient to use, and consumes less true energy than the other 3 thunders, but its power is not much inferior. Che Thunder consumes the most true energy and has a very large attack range, which is suitable for throwing one and then running away in the chaos. Arctic Thunder has its own cold effect, and its overall power is not as good as Chi Thunder, but it wins in terms of concentrated explosive power, and its power is worse than Jade Pivot Thunder, and it can be used to attack strong enemies. Xiandu Thunder is the fastest, and it can be used to attack with a split hand, and even the flying sword can't catch up, so it is suitable for sneak attacks or frontal attacks. As for the special attack on ghosts and dragons, they are not available for the time being. In short, the 4 thunders have their own characteristics, and Kyo Chang's iron needs to practice them all, so that they can be used as countermeasures at critical moments. He suddenly turned around, but did not see any figure. Ajin, tell me, is there anyone watching me? Kyo Chang's iron said vigilantly. Yes. Kunlun Mirror answered leisurely. Who is it? Kyo Chang's iron frowned and asked. Someone who likes you. Kunlun Mirror said calmly. Someone who likes me. Kyo Chang's iron was furious, and the riddle mirror was killed. Who in Kunlun doesn't know that my senior brother Kyo was widely loved by his fellow disciples? There are so many people who like me, how do I know which one it is? And it's the one who is closest to you at ordinary times. As if sensing what he was thinking, Kunlun Mirror added. Oh, junior sister Zhu. Kyo Chang's iron thought, why is she spying on me? Kunlun Mirror was speechless. By the way, hearing the 2 conditions like you and closest to you, you can infer without thinking that it is Zhu Yingyan. Aren't you too narcissistic? After all, the coating of Kunlun Mirror is too thin. I dare not think about such words that can penetrate my face, so I decided not to continue to tangle, but asked. She is on the top of the mountain behind you, and she is staring at you. What are you going to do? Nothing. Kyo Chang's iron replied, if I catch her on the spot, she will definitely deny it with her face, and I can't ask her anything. It's better to pretend that I didn't notice it first, and see what she wants to do first. He continued to study the 5 thunders orthodox method, released a few divine thunders, stopped to recover his true energy, and asked Kunlun Mirror by the way if his junior sister was still watching from behind. Then he released a few more divine thunders, stopped to rest, and slowly comprehended the mystery of yin and yang collide, and the fierceness of life is peeled off in the thunder method. Zhu Yingyan looked down from the top of the mountain and began to think in his heart. Senior brother has been practicing thunder method here for almost an hour. Judging from the frequency of casting Taoist method, it is much slower than my practice of great bright fire. In other words, the more Taoist methods are cast, the faster they can be mastered. Practice is not the fundamental purpose. The real meaning lies in deepening the understanding of Taoist methods through practice. Well, you are worthy at being senior brother. I was still naive. Invincible character set, synchronization value +1. Kyo change iron. Wait, what did I do? How did the synchronization value increase? He was quite puzzled and subconsciously stopped practicing Thunder method for the time being. Zhu Yingyan saw it and was secretly shocked. Senior brother, why did you stop suddenly? Did you have an epiphany? So that's it. I was wondering how senior brother had so much time to practice multiple key refining techniques, Taoist methods and sword controlling techniques. It turns out that it was because of epiphany. In this state of epiphany, he was enlightened and his mind was opened. Naturally, his efficiency in practicing Taoism was far better than usual. In order to frequently enter the state of enlightenment, in addition to relying on aptitude, long-term practice and deep thinking are also the secrets. Humph, senior brother, you only know how to hide these skills, but you didn't expect that I would see through it at a glance. Invincible character, synchronization value +1. Kyo change iron. No, who added synchronization value to me? Could it be junior sister? If she's so cute now. Even I can add synchronization value when I stand still. The more Kyo change iron thought about it, the more he felt something was wrong, so he set up the sword light and flew away. Zhu Yingyan hurriedly followed with the sword, and silently memorized this summary in her heart. Senior brother is on the east side of Kongling, practicing thunder magic for an hour. Although the time allocation is similar to mine, with the help of frequent enlightenment states, the efficiency of practice can be improved. She followed senior brother carefully, followed all the way back to Jinling, and saw Kyo change iron return to the cave. Following Kyo change iron into the cave, Zhu Yingyan was cautious and did not use his spiritual sense to investigate. He just waited outside the stone chamber for a long time before quietly looking in. He saw senior brother Kyo sitting on the stone bed, with his legs crossed, his 5 hearts looking up at the sky, his chest rising slightly, and a wisp of white air rising from his head. It was obvious that he was practicing the 9 heavens Pure Land Realm mantra and breathing in and out to refine his ki. Zhu Yingyan secretly made a note in his heart. At 4:00 p.m., senior brother Kyo returned to the cave and began to breathe in and out to refine his ki. After practicing for almost 2 hours, Kyo change iron opened his eyes again and slowly exhaled a long breath. Zhu Yingyan quickly retracted his head and made another note. Senior brother breathes in and out to refine his ki for 2 hours. The time is about the same as mine. Kyo change iron stood up from his meditation state and seemed to be about to go out. Zhu Yingyan quickly turned around and left. As soon as she walked out of the cave, she saw Jian Qingnan flying by on a sword. She suddenly stopped in mid-air and stared at the second senior sister who came out of the senior brother's cave in amazement. Zhu Yingyan immediately raised her index finger with her right hand and pressed it in front of her lips, meaning that this matter must not be told to anyone. Jian Qingnan's face immediately turned pale. Sister Yingyan meant that I was not allowed to tell anyone about her and my senior brother's secret meeting, otherwise she would tear my mouth apart. She quickly shook her head like a rattle, and Zhu Yingyan nodded with satisfaction, then left quickly. Kyo change iron then came out of the cave and saw Jian Qingnan standing in the air, so he asked, "Little junior sister, what are you doing here?" "I'm outside the cave to admire the majestic and heroic figure of my senior brother." Jian Qingnan suppressed her expression and said, "Nonsense." "Ah?" Kyo change iron was stunned for a moment, and then saw Jian Qingnan turn the sword light and fly away in a hurry. Invincible character setting, synchronization value +1. Kyo change iron. Which junior sister added this synchronization value? Come out, let me praise you. He walked down the mountain road. Zhu Yingyan, who heard the footsteps, quickly hid in his own cave. After a while, he heard senior brother Kyo saying loudly outside, "Junior sister Zhu, senior brother is occasionally interested today and got some inspiration. Can you help senior brother finish this song?" Zhu Yingyan was silent for a moment, then quickly adjusted his face, showing a cold and reserved expression, then went to the inner room to get the phoenix tail harp, slowly walked out of the cave and said, "Okay." Kyo change iron smiled slightly, and also took out the jasper long flute hanging from his waist. The two began to play the harp and flute together. The flute sounded first, and then the harp sounded, back and forth, like high mountains and flowing water, and the soulmates sang in harmony. The music was intermittent at first, and gradually became much smoother, and finally the complete song was played. Kunlun Mirror was also very considerate, and quietly removed the invincible temperament at the right time, making Qiu Chang Tian, who was wearing white clothes and holding a flute, more handsome and gentle like jade. Zhu Yingyan noticed the change in his temperament and felt that his senior brother seemed to be less cold again, and the hidden emotions in his heart also surged. Senior brother and I play a song together for half an hour. I'm a little happy. Chapter 89. Meeting a bosom friend in the country. It turns out to be a colleague in Shushan. Ling Yunpo's task is to compete in swordsmanship. Now he has successfully defeated Yuan Fanhai and won the second place in the Immortal Sword ranking. The next goal is to keep the second place, which requires thundering methods to anyone who attempts to take the seed, to ensure that others dare not come to challenge. The thundering methods here are actually literal. The acquired 5 elements extinction divine light is too overbearing, and it can turn a flying sword into scrap metal with a single brush. The appearance is intact, but the spirituality inside is completely gone. Anyone can see that something is wrong. Only the 5 Thunders orthodox method can be fooled by the Taoist methods on the Thunder Sword. Anyway, no one knows what Taoist methods are sealed on the Thunder Sword. Therefore, during this period of time, in addition to daily breathing and refining, Qiu Chang Tian is concentrating on practicing the 5 Thunders orthodox method to improve the power of thunder methods, and confirm how the junior sister is feeling and whether there are any signs of being possessed. Junior sister's use mood has improved recently. Sometimes she concentrates on cultivation, sometimes she plays the zither and composes music, and sometimes she goes to Chud Market to soak in Kunlun Spring. Her life is very comfortable. The other junior brothers and sisters are similar. In addition to daily breathing and refining, they do their own hobbies to make their thoughts free. Yuanzhen is obsessed with sword practice, Yan Zichua likes reading, Chenxian and Thong Tianhua like to explore everywhere and look for ruins and caves, and Jian Qingnan stays with other inner sect sisters, chirping and talking about nothing. Compared with the human touch of Pengliu King Temple and the involution of Shushan King Sect, Kunlun Tai King Sect is probably the sect that best suits the indifferent meaning of cultivating immortals, doing whatever they want and without constraints. After practicing for a few days, Qiu Chang Tian read the game and went to Luoyan. There was no other reason, but he was used to staying on each line for a few days before switching, so as not to forget what to do if he didn't read the game on a certain line for a long time. Luoyan is now on a business trip to Asi Island at public expense with Miss Shi, following the order of his master, Elder Shi Ding. Tiangong Fan had previously helped Zidong Tian set up a large array to protect the island. Now the array is not functioning properly, and Luoyan needs to find that problem and repair it. The Zidong Tian disciple who was responsible for receiving them was a beautiful female monk called Li Qinying. Luoyan always felt that there was something wrong with this woman. Point 3. East China Sea, Asi Island. Character identity. Luoyan. Mirror Flower Water Moon Templar covered, traveling through time and space. In the alleys of Danzig Island, Luoyan squinted his eyes for a while to adapt, and then walked out with a gentle smile. At the stall in front, the stall owner was trying hard to sell the 2 fairies some kind of beautifying pearl powder, but was exposed by Li Qinying in a few words, and gave them a 50% discount. Miss Shi has now regarded Li Qinying as a close sister. She held her arm and talked to her intimately, and Luoyan followed with a smile. No matter what Li Qinying was doing, he was not very worried. Since the other party chose to conceal it, it means that they don't want to conflict with us for the time being. As for ambushing us, it is even less likely. After all, it is unknown who Tiangong Fan will send to the island. What if Elder Shi Ding comes in person? Therefore, first of all, we must not expose any suspicion on our side, so that the other party can easily detect the clues. Secondly, we must find out the intention of the other party to invite us to go there, so as to eliminate unnecessary risks. Luoyan intends to take charge of the latter himself. After all, only with his own outstanding wisdom can he successfully see through the enemy's conspiracy. Let Miss Shi take the former. She doesn't know anything at all, so she can confuse the other party. Therefore, Luoyan also pretended to be relaxed and accompanied the 2 of them to eat, drink and have fun in the market. Junior brother, what do you think of that clam pot? Shili suddenly said. Luoyan followed her gaze and saw rows of neatly arranged earthenware jars on the street stalls. The steaming earthenware jars were filled with clams and vermicelli cooked to a pulp, with a bright soup and an alluring aroma. However, all the ingredients were ordinary food, and there were no rare ingredients that were beneficial to monks. It was a lonely meal. Wow, senior sister, you have a keen eye. Luo Yan pretended to be surprised. This vermicelli casserole seems to be very delicious. Oh, there's really nothing I can do about you. Shili was very satisfied, so she turned to Li Qingyang and said, my junior brother is good in everything else, but he is greedy for food. I have told him many times but he still can't change it. She showed a helpless expression of it's all my junior brother who wants to eat, and motioned Luo Yan to buy it quickly. Luo Yan smiled bitterly and went to get his wallet. No, as a spy, I'm a professional, and my fist must not be hard, unless I can't help it. Li Qingyang was watching from the side and laughed. She was naturally aware of Shili's greed but she blamed her junior brother. Luo Yan secretly observed her smile and suddenly realized that this woman seemed to be very similar to himself. For example, they both regarded Miss Shi as a fool. Do you want to try it, Li Doya? He asked this, but he bought 3 cans without hesitation and handed over the first can. I have tried this local snack countless times. Li Qingyang took it with a smile, but I never get tired of it. Luo Yan took the second can and patiently blew it cool before handing it to Miss Shi. Shili was very happy. This kind of tacit understanding between the senior sister and the junior brother, especially when it was shown in front of outsiders, would make her extremely happy and enjoyable. However, Li Qingyang seemed to be completely unaware of it, just calmly eating the vermicelli in small bites. No. Luo Yan pondered in his heart. With the woman's previous performance, it was absolutely impossible that she didn't notice that Miss Shi was showing off. She just didn't care. Thinking of this, Luo Yan could finally confirm that this guy should be the same kind as himself. This hypocritical persona of mine should be awarded to you, fellow Daoist Li. Luo Yan suddenly remembered something and hurriedly said to Kunlun Mirror. Ah Mirror. Is there any trace of demon possession on this Li Qingyang? To be honest. Kunlun Mirror secretly activated its ability and observed for a while before saying calmly, indeed, her voice paused and said, it's not that the demon is possessed, but this person is similar to you and does not show her true appearance to others. She used some kind of demon magic to disguise herself as what you see now. Humph. Luo Yan laughed, so that's it. This Li Qingyang is not a cultivator from Zidong at all, but a spy from the magic way who has been replaced by someone else. Playing a spy in front of me, you are playing with a big axe in front of Lu Ban and a big knife in front of Yuan Gong. Can you confirm that this is a demon magic? Luo Yan asked again to confirm. Confirmed. Kunlun Mirror said affirmatively. The magic of the heavenly demons is the signature magic of the heavenly demons of the Jiao sect. This branch of magic is best at collecting people's 7 emotions and 6 desires, and even the souls of living people, to refine various kinds of demons and perform all kinds of strange and bizarre evil magic. Among them is a kind of magic called 10-phase release method, in which the caster can freely change his face, figure, skin color, voice, and smell, and can also change into a child, a young man, an old man, a strong man, or a woman. It can be called the most difficult illusion in the world. Of course, a jinn's mirror flowers and water moons are outside the scope of the theory and cannot be counted. After confirming the other party's true identity as a cultivator of the heavenly demons, Luo Yan's heart was like a big stone falling, and he immediately became confident. A mere evil demon pretending to be a decent cultivator, let me see how I deal with you. Chapter 90. 10 Aspects of Dharma Interpretation, 5 Zi and 5 Poisons. The destruction and disintegration of the ancient Jiao was later than that of the ancient Changzhou. Similar to the 3 divisions of Changzhou, the Jiao was divided into 5 after its disintegration, namely the Heavenly Demon Dao, the Mortal Dao, the In-Ghost Dao, the Beast-Taming Dao, and the Hell Dao. Then the Beast-Taming Dao was destroyed and was replaced by the Donghuang Dao, which changed its name. The Shiro Dao, which was hostile to the Western religion, joined it, so it was collectively called the 6 parts of the demon religion by the 3 pure ones of the Orthodox religion. Among them, the Hell Dao claimed to have inherited the Jiao orthodoxy and was the most mysterious. The sect's location was unknown. In addition, the Mortal Dao was in Watai Mountain in the east of Jin, with the largest number of people. The In-Ghost Dao was in Main Mountain in the north of Luobi, and all of them were ghost cultivators. The Donghuang Dao was in Yulong Mountain in southern Xinjiang, and was good at raising poisonous creatures. The Shiro Dao was in Tiqing Mountain in Qinghai, and all of them were foreign monks. As for the Heavenly Demon Dao, it was in Dapan Mountain, an island near the coast of Yangzhou. Most of the disciples in the sect are women, who have been active in the southern part of the East China Sea all year round, constantly infiltrating and corrupting the Pengliu King Temple in the northern part of the East China Sea. However, it was still surprising that they could infiltrate Zidon's Iron, a place so close to Yuking Temple. A Jin, this Li Qingyang's skin cover an illusion, could it be a rough man? Lu Yan suddenly remembered something more important. If this is a hairy man, wearing the illusion of 10 phases of explanation, and doing these cute little girl gestures in front of him, making Lu Yan vomit the lunch he had just eaten is a small matter, and proving that the other party is perverted enough is a more terrible thing. As a cultivator of the heavenly demon sect who mainly cultivates the 7 emotions and 6 desires, the more perverted, extreme, and irrational the personality is, the more sinister and powerful the magic he practices. So there is a saying called 3 don'ts, that is, don't mess with children, women, and old people in the demon sect. It should be known that there are 10,000 ways for people in the demon sect to change their appearance, and deliberately pretending to be these 3 types must be problematic. Kunlun Mirror scanned it and said lightly, the real body is also female. That's good. Lu Yan breathed a sigh of relief. What does it matter whether it's a man or a woman? Kunlun Mirror asked doubtfully. It's obvious. Lu Yan sighed and said, a tree without bark will die. A man without shame will be invincible. If a man can even endure the humiliation of wearing women's clothes, what else can defeat him completely? Kunlun Mirror. It doesn't know why this guy's crooked logic is always a set. Although it sounds reasonable, it's obviously not right when you think about it carefully, okay? In the market of Danzi Island, after Shilili had a good time for a day, he and Lu Yan stayed in a nearby inn under the arrangement of Li Qingyang. After Li Qingyang left, Lu Yan took a circle around and activated his innate ability of hearing 1,000 things to remember the internal structure of the inn and the surrounding terrain. Then he came to Shilili's door and knocked on the door. As a result, he knocked the door open directly. It seemed that it was only half closed. Ah! Shilili inside screamed. Lu Yan looked carefully and saw that Shilili was holding the newly bought Bella Bank today, comparing the size with her body. He thought to himself, that's it. She didn't even take off her clothes. At the same time, he calmly closed the door and said loudly, oh, I originally wanted to find senior sister for something, but I forgot what it was. I'll go find her later when I remember it. Hypocritical personality, synchronization value +1. He leisurely returned to his room and began to prepare to set up the formation. Not long after, Shilili reacted and rushed in from outside with great momentum. Whatever you saw just now, forget it all. She said rudely. Senior sister, I just saw you holding your underwear. Lu Yan looked innocent, and before he finished speaking, he was interrupted by Mrs. Ah. That won't do either. Shilili's face flushed, and she glared at him. Anyway, you were not allowed to remember. Did you hear me? Lu Yan was helpless. He was already cultivating immortals, and he was still making a fuss when his body was seen. Ah, no, I didn't see it at all. I just saw you holding your underwear, and you were shy about that. He complained in his heart, but he stretched out his voice and said, okay, Senior sister just said that you were not allowed to remember something. Why can't I remember it? Hypocritical personality, synchronization value +1. Humph. Shilili said angrily, took out a paper roll and unfolded it on the table, saying, tomorrow's plan is this. In the morning, we will go to Yuzi Island to take a warm bath. It is said that there are natural sulfur hot springs there. At noon, we will have lunch at the nearby lobster restaurant, and in the afternoon, we will go to Muzi Island to see musk deer and buy some anti-poison wood fragrance beads. At night, we will play in the coral forest at the bottom of Chuanzi Island, and then rest. Do you have any questions? Yes. Lu Yan pretended to be puzzled and asked, we have all been fasting, is it necessary to eat ordinary lobsters? Of course. Shilili said as a matter of course, because you were too greedy, and the lobsters over there are particularly delicious. As a senior sister, I have to take care of your preferences. Shameless. You want to eat but refuse to admit it, and it falls on my head. Lu Yan cursed in his heart, and said, then when are we going to repair the island formation? Can't you just take a look at that kind of thing after you have played enough? Shilili said. Lu Yan could only smile awkwardly. Indeed, then senior sister should rest early tonight. Well, I'm going to practice breathing and refining ki. Shilili went out happily. Lu Yan smiled and watched her leave, then continued to set up the formation in the room. Although he didn't know the actual situation of Wazir Cave Heaven, he also planned to cooperate with the other party and pretend that he didn't know anything, and the two sides lived in peace for a while, but Lu Yan naturally couldn't be completely unprepared. To be honest, if he came here alone on a business trip, he would have found an opportunity to withdraw and run away. Unfortunately, Mishu was traveling with him this time, and Luoyan was not sure that he could take her away without revealing his cards, so he could only stay put. On the other side, Li Qingying also took advantage of the cover of night and quickly came to the outskirts of Danzig Island, and met another strange female monk on the edge of the rocky cape. "Senior sister," she said with a smile, "I have already appeased the 2 monks in Yuqing Temple. You didn't show your feet?" The female monk called senior sister by Li Qingying asked coldly. "No," Li Qingying said with a smile, "my 10-phase explanation is so flawless that even master can hardly find it." "Humph," the female cultivator said coldly, "if they find any clues and cause this plan to fail, I will hold you responsible." "Of course, senior sister." Li Qingying narrowed her eyes slightly. Somehow, she suddenly felt that narrowing her eyes like this gave her a sense of security that hid her thoughts. Perhaps it was because she had seen too much of that guy named Luoyan, but, senior sister. She continued to smile and said, "If those 2 people unlock the formation and we go into search but don't find that thing, then it would be considered senior sister's mistake, right?" "No way." The female cultivator sneered. "Humph, junior sister Jiang, did you know that this place was not called Wazi Island 10,000 years ago?" "Oh, what was it called then?" Li Qingying asked innocently. "Five Poison Island." The female cultivator's voice was gloomy. Chapter 91. Using each other and being wary of each other. In ancient times, this island was located at the border of the sect and the Jiri sect, and no one lived here for a long time. The sect called it the 5 Ganoderma Island, and the Jiri sect called it the 5 Poison Island. The 5 Ganoderma refers to the 5 species of Ganoderma growing on each of the 5 islands, namely Dan, Jin, Yu, Xuan, and Mu. The 5 poisons refers to the 5 poisonous insects that live on the 5 islands, namely scorpions, spiders, centipedes, toads, and snakes. They feed on the 5 Ganoderma respectively. Upon hearing this, Li Qingying quietly tightened her clothes. Although she was not afraid of insects, she hated them. The elder sister noticed that she was a little uncomfortable, so she showed a happy expression and continued. Originally, the 5 poison islands were controlled by the Jiri religion and were used to raise and cultivate poisonous creatures. Later, the Jiri religion was defeated in the East China Sea, and many powerful people were killed. The poisonous creatures on the 5 poison islands were also slaughtered by the Chen religion that occupied this place. But the most critical poisonous creature, because it was hidden too secretly, it luckily escaped. "How can you be sure, elder sister?" Li Qingying asked softly. After the fall of the Jiri religion, the beast-taming sect has been sending people to the East China Sea. The elder sister said coldly, "With the huge amount of manpower and material resources they have invested, it is impossible that they are looking for an illusory thing. It should be that the beast-taming sect has some way to confirm that the poisonous creature is still alive." Li Qingying remained silent, and she also secretly calculated in her heart. If what senior sister said was true, then with the arrogance of the beast-taming duo in the past, the poisonous creature that could make them all excited and even go to great lengths to attack was indeed very likely the one senior sister expected. "I understand." She smiled sweetly, "Then I will follow that plan and let the 2 of them to the place." "Yes," senior sister said with a cold expression, "when they unlock the formation, you can use the god and demon with form to control the 2 of them." "Okay, senior sister." Li Qingying agreed. After saying goodbye to senior sister and leaving, her expression became playful again. "To be honest, when I first saw Luoyan, I had an inexplicable sense of jadu, but I didn't know what it was for a while. Just now, I suddenly realized. What he and I have in common is that we both have an extremely stupid senior sister. The only difference is that he is still subtly controlling his senior sister, and I can no longer tolerate this idiot. Well, take this opportunity to get rid of her." In the next few days, nothing happened. Ling Yunpa was still fighting like a prodigy. Among the 7 or 8 opponents, only one was ranked outside the top 80 on the Immortal Sword ranking, and the rest were all rookie fellow disciples who were not on the list. It can only be said that he won easily, which made senior sister very happy. As for Qiu Cheng Tian, apart from daily practice, he took care of Zhu Yinbayan. If the junior sister was unhappy, he would take her out to find someone to compete with, or go out for training. As a result, strange rumors spread in Tai King sect, saying that the 2 had actually become Taoist couples. When Zhu Yingyan first heard these rumors, she felt a little ashamed and angry, but seeing Qiu Changtian's calm appearance, she was unwilling to lose to her senior brother in terms of temperament, and then she gradually became indifferent. Luo Yan accompanied Shi Lili on various tours, and Li Qingyang accompanied them as the host throughout the trip, and they had a lot of fun. It was not until the Wazi Island was fully visited and all the food was eaten that she remembered the business of this trip. Led by Li Qingyang, the two came to the uninhabited islands of Zidongtian and began to check the key points of the formation one by one. Luo Yan had to admit that Master Shi Ding's formation method was really brilliant. The so-called watching the mountains and looking at the water is to perfectly integrate the artificial formation method with the natural environment trend, thereby greatly reducing the operating loss and increasing the life of the formation. No wonder the master's first reaction when he heard that there was a problem with the formation was impossible. After checking more than a dozen small islands, Shi Lili was really bored, so he flew back to Danzi Island to visit the market. Luo Yan patiently adjusted the formation flag, only to hear Li Qingyang gasp behind him. Fellow Daoist Luo seems to be very good at formations. I dare not say I am good at it. Luo Yan said lightly, I just know a little bit. Really? Li Qingyang did not comment, but just smiled and said, I wonder if you know the ancient formation. Luo Yan was shocked when he heard this. Is this going to be revealed? At this time, the two are on an uninhabited island, and Miss Shi was not at the scene. Whether the other party wanted to attack him or he killed the other party, there was plenty of room for operation. Well, if she makes the slightest move, I will just kill her with the acquired 5 elements Great Extinction Divine Light. Thinking of this, Luo Yan didn't plan to pretend anymore, and simply said, Tell me, what formation do you want me to break? Li Qingyang chuckled. You're really interesting, why do you think I want you to break a formation? Because there is no problem with the island protection formation of Wazidongtian. Luo Yan said expressionlessly, and Doyer is not from Wazidongtian. Li Qingyang was silent for a moment, and suddenly showed a weird smile. Interesting. I thought my disguise was perfect, so Doyer, can you help me figure out where I have revealed the flaw? What are you planning? Luo Yan asked instead of answering. Li Qingyang stared at him for a while, then bit her finger in distress and said, Why don't you just do it? I thought you orthodox people were all straightforward and evil and heretic, everyone can kill them. That's right. Luo Yan said calmly, so I will judge whether you're an evil demon based on your answer. Li Qingyang thought about it and guessed that the reason why the other party showed such a fearless attitude was that he might have a powerful trump card to protect himself. Sure enough, he is the same type of person as me. It's actually very simple. She said with a smile, I found an ancient relic on Wazi Island. There is an obscure formation protecting the outside, so I want to borrow the power of fellow Taoists to break it. After breaking the formation, how about we split the gains inside the relic 50-50? Luo Yan thought for a moment and asked, Where is the relic? It's on this island. Li Qingyang narrowed her eyes, but the entrance is extremely secret. If fellow Taoist goes alone, there is no way you can find any clues. Luo Yan was so smart that he immediately knew that the other party was warning him not to think about getting rid of her to find the relic. As for her saying the entrance is extremely secret, it was reasonable. After all, this place has been under the rule of Wazidongtian for thousands of years. Even if it is located on an island with few people, it is difficult to hide from the sight of local monks. There should be some mechanism to conceal its existence. Of course, Luo Yan didn't want to fight with her. After all, he was not a guardian of the Tao who hated evil and had to eliminate all evil. He would shout and kill the demon monks when he saw them. Besides, since she chose to take the initiative to admit her identity, she was not worried at all that I would attack her. Maybe she also had a similar self-protection trump card. There was no need to rashly attack her without any benefit. And she probably thought the same about herself. Based on this situation of mutual benefit and mutual fear, the two sides had a fragile foundation for cooperation. Okay. Luo Yan nodded and said, Let's find the ruins first. I have to say this in advance. Li Qingyang smiled gracefully and reminded, although it is an ancient relic, it may not be safe. Daoist friend, you should be careful. Don't worry about that. Under her probing gaze, Luo Yan did not hesitate at all, but said calmly, Lead the way quickly. Seeing that his expression was flawless and he didn't even ask any further questions, Li Qingyang became more and more puzzled about his strength, so she had to smile and said, Daoist friend, please follow me. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novel, as there you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 92. Gods and Demons with Appearances, 5 Elements Divine Light. What the two sides have reached at this time is a fragile balance. On the one hand, both sides are taking advantage of each other's value. Luoyang needs Li Qingyang to lead the way to the ruins, and Li Qingyang needs Luoyang to crack the formation outside the ruins. On the other hand, both sides are also wary of each other's hidden strength. In the absence of necessity and certainty, it is not good for both sides to start fighting rashly. But such a fragile balance cannot last forever. As long as any party reveals a flaw, or encounters a big enough benefit, someone will immediately take the risk. Therefore, Luoyang always keeps his hands in his sleeves to ensure that he can silently play Xiandu Thunder. This thunder is the fastest among all thunder methods, even faster than the flying sword, which is suitable for taking the initiative. At the same time, he also instructs Kunlun Mirror in the Sea of Consciousness to help keep an eye on any movement around. Following Li Qingyang through the woods, he entered a swamp. Luoyang frowned, noticing that these swamps were mainly composed of pale blue sewage, with many insects and larvae in the water, and swarms of mosquitoes in the air, which would deter even the monks. If they continued to go deeper, they would most likely encounter miasma. Li Qingyang was indifferent, but continued to move forward calmly. Luoyang followed her to the center of the swamp, and felt that the surrounding trees were becoming more and more dense, blocking the sky of the sun, and the light was getting dim. "It's here," Li Qingyang suddenly said. Following the direction of her finger, Luoyang saw a deep pool with a diameter of about 3 or 4 meters, located at the edge of the junction of the swamp and the low hill. At first glance, it was not eye-catching. But if you look closely, you can find something strange. First, the water color is wrong, it is too clear, and it is clearly separated from the surrounding swamps. Secondly, there are no insects in the water, and the swarms of mosquitoes are unwilling to approach, as if there is an invisible wall of air. "Do you recognize this formation?" Li Qingyang asked with a smile. "Sumerian formation." Luoyang released his spiritual sense to explore, carefully surveying the distribution of spiritual power, and suddenly showed a look of surprise. "No, there is also the Rinchu-locking dragon formation. 2 formations are nested in a chain, one to defend the outside, and the other to lock the inside. What kind of structure is this? I don't think it's a relic, but a prison. Is there a way to crack it?" Li Qingyang continued to ask, and at the same time glanced at the distance imperceptibly. Her senior sister hid behind a low hill and had ambushed the 36 gods and demons. She was waiting for Luoyang to crack the formation and then rushed out to kill him. It's hard to say, the rank of the person who set up the formation is too high. Luoyang was studying the formation, and only heard Kunlun Mirror say, "There is a demon monk behind the low hill in front." Her. Luoyang immediately tensed up, and suddenly noticed that Li Qingyang beside him leaked a trace of demonic energy. However, it disappeared in a flash, so fast that it seemed like his illusion. "What's wrong with this guy?" Luoyang was extremely alert. Just now, the trace of demonic energy almost made him think that the other party was going to attack. He was about to use his fingers to release the thunder magic, but the other party took it back. It was as if he was deliberately threatening me. "Wait, deliberately." Thinking of the alarm of Kunlun Mirror, Luoyang immediately realized what was going on. The demon monk behind the hill was in the same group with Li Qingyang. They were lying in ambush here and were waiting for the moment when he lifted the formation, so as to launch an attack and kill him. However, Li Qingyang and the other party were also incompatible. She didn't want to be killed by a surprise attack, so she deliberately released the demonic energy to make him alert. In short, it was to induce him and the man to kill each other, and she would benefit from it. Thinking of this, Luoyang continued to study the formation calmly. Zumi-Dain formation and Rinchu-locking dragon formation were both extremely advanced formations. If Elder Shiding was here, he probably wouldn't dare to say that he could easily break these 2 formations. Fortunately, it has been 10,000 years since the formation was set up. Mountains and rivers have shifted, and stars have changed their orbits, making the originally perfect formation have many weaknesses. The person who set up the formation should be an old monster in the nascent soul stage, or even an immortal at a higher level, but his attainments in the formation are not deep, and he does not know how to make up for the shortcomings, so that the original 100-point formation has only about 15 points now. But even 15 points is like a natural mode for a foundation building cultivator. It is said that without a diamond drill, it is difficult to take on a porcelain job. Even if Luo Yan can think of 100 ways, he still suffers from his low cultivation and has no idea where to start. That's right. With the talent bonus of 1 hearing, 1000 enlightenments, Luo Yan's mind suddenly had an idea. I have the acquired 5 elements extinction divine light. The Rinchu locking dragon formation is an extremely powerful water formation. It looks like a deep pool below, but the actual amount of water is close to endless. It is no exaggeration to say that it is the entire ocean. It is not surprising that ordinary cultivators would be crushed into meat patties if they were involved in it. But such a formation is definitely not beyond the 5 elements. I only need to activate the 5 elements divine light, extract the Rinchu true essence from it and refine it, and this formation will break by itself. As for the Zumi formation, it is a deep space formation. Between Zumi, it can be close at hand and far away, which is perfect for trapping enemies. However, I have a mirror on my body, which has the laws of time and space, and the best thing is to teleport me here and there, ahem. Come, the mirror said, Zumeridae formation, I can help you break it. No, I don't want to break it. Luo Yan smiled slightly, a Jin, can you take control of the formation? It can be, come, the mirror said subconsciously, and then reacted, you want to use the formation to kill them? That's right. Luo Yan smiled, it's rare to encounter 2 large formations, and I can break them both. How can I not make good use of them? Okay. Come, the mirror agreed. Luo Yan flew in the air with his sword, stretched out his arm, and pressed towards the pool below. The air wall that originally separated the inside and outside suddenly began to twist faintly. Li Qingying. She suddenly had a very bad premonition. From childhood to adulthood, her premonition of fatal danger was very effective, and this intuition even saved her life several times. A great fear arose in her heart, and Li Qingying almost screamed and retreated immediately. The formation has been broken. Senior sister, please take action. The female monk of the magic sect who was ambushing behind the hill immediately jumped out with countless demons. The demon was called 36 gods and demons with forms. He used a secret method to provoke the 5th Walayan outside the sky, luring the demons from outside the sky to descend to the world, and then refining them for his own use. The demons from Walayan are born with the ability to change into various forms. They are flying birds in the sky and elephants and horses on the ground. No tangible weapons can hurt them. As soon as these 36 demons appeared, they immediately turned into green-faced and fanyakshas and rushed towards Luo Yan. Li Qingying was closer to Luo Yan, so she quickly distanced herself from him. At the same time, she threw out a demon head from her sleeve. It was an ordinary demon, shaped like a human head, and rushed towards Luo Yan with a roar. Luo Yan flew down several feet on his sword and fell into the Zumi formation. With a flick of his right hand, the immortal thunder came out, and the red lightning struck straight down, immediately killing the demon shaped like a human head and destroying it, turning it into a wisp of black smoke. The female cultivator of the evil way took the opportunity to drive the gods and demons with forms to kill in front of her. 36 demon heads surrounded Luo Yan, spewing large pieces of ink like thick smoke from their mouths, spraying directly at Luo Yan's face. This smoke is the innate magical power of the gods and demons with forms, and it is the most insidious. If ordinary cultivators are touched by a little bit, they will immediately arouse their 7 emotions and 6 desires, and their heart fire will be blazing and difficult to control. They can't move, and can only let the demon heads kill and eat them. However, Luo Yan stayed in the formation and didn't move. A large piece of black smoke surrounded him, but it couldn't get close to him a few inches, as if it was blocked by an invisible wall of air. The female demon monk was startled when she saw this, and then she looked at her junior sister Li Qingying, only to see that she had already driven the sword light and driven it at full speed, disappearing into the dense woods. The next second, Luo Yan rubbed his hands together, and a 5-colored light gushed out from his palms, quickly sweeping over the surrounding demons. Those demons wailed together, and the 5 elements collapsed, turning into black smoke and shattering. These 36 gods and demons that were powerful enough to besiege the Jindan-level monks could not survive for a short breath under the radiation of the 5-element extinction divine light. Chapter 93. Golden Jade Leaf Flower. The acquired 5 elements extinction divine light. The first actual combat result was unexpectedly good. The 36 gods and demons were instantly turned into ashes under the devastating power of the 5 elements divine light. The demon female cultivator was just stunned, and then immediately turned around and fled. At this time, she realized that the previous call of senior sister, take action quickly by Jing junior sister was not really a reminder for her to take action to destroy the enemy. Instead, it was to attract the attention of this cultivator so that she could escape from the chaos and run away. Damn it. She immediately activated the heavenly demon disintegration method. Her power increased dramatically, and her blood began to burn. While rushing out desperately, she had already cut her junior sister into pieces countless times in her heart. Damn you, junior sister. When I catch you after escaping this time, I will definitely peel off your skin, pull out your tendons, grind your bones and scatter your ashes, lock your soul into the demon refining jar, refine you for 49 days, turn you into a resentful demon, and torture you forever. Before the curse was finished, he found that although the speed of the sword light soared to the extreme, the position did not move forward much. To be more precise, the space was strangely stretched by the formation. Then, her whole body, along with the sword light, was completely swallowed up by the endless 5-element Great Extinction Divine Light. Luo Yan flew out of the Zumi Great Extinction formation staggeringly, feeling that his whole body's true energy was almost exhausted. The consumption of this 5-element divine light was really exaggerated. It only lasted for 4 or 5 seconds. When he came to the place where the female cultivator of the demon Dio fell, he found that the body had long been annihilated into ashes, and the flying sword she was riding had also turned into a piece of broken copper and iron. Luo Yan. Even the storage bag and the treasures inside, have they all been brushed into ashes? Well, in the future, unless it is necessary, you must not use the 5 elements divine light at will, lest the road to wealth is blocked. Luo Yan turned around again and looked in the direction where Li Qingyang fled. She escaped quite quickly, just when I controlled the formation, before I had time to use the 5 elements divine light. After a little hesitation, Luo Yan gave up the idea of chasing her. On the one hand, the other party had already left the range of the formation, and there was no guarantee of catching up. On the other hand, while Mishu was still playing on Danzig Island, the top priority was to explore the ruins below as soon as possible, and no more time could be wasted. Thinking of this, he took out the elixir from his sleeve and swallowed it, recovering his true energy, and then quickly rushed to the deep pool below. With the help of the Kunlun mirror, he penetrated the Zumi Dain formation without difficulty and plunged into the Rinshua locking dragon formation. As soon as he entered the water, huge pressure, coldness and darkness came from all directions. There are 2 types of true water, Rin and Qi. If Qi water is the endless water without roots, the spring of rivers, lakes and seas in the world, then Rin water is the water of the vast North Sea, and one drop has a terrifying amount of water of tens of millions of kilograms. If it were an ordinary cultivator, he would be crushed into a pulp, but Luo Yan was prepared. With the help of the true energy supplement of the elixir, he once again stimulated the 5 elements of divine light, protecting his body and rolling it up. The pressure, coldness and darkness all faded away in an instant. Luo Yan felt a black screen in front of his eyes when he used the 5 elements of divine light to forcibly break the Rin water dragon lock array. The true energy that had just been replenished with the help of the elixir was all exhausted again. Although taking elixirs many times in a short period of time will definitely increase drug resistance and reduce conversion efficiency, there seems to be no good way in the short term. He took the elixir again, and then looked inward, and saw that the sea of Qi was slowly filling up, and there were 5 colors of red, green, yellow, white and black. The black light was obviously much deeper, which was obviously due to the absorption of Rin water true essence. According to the mental method of the 5 elements divine light, if one can gather the 5 yang 5 elements true veins of the 10,000 years of sky supporting wood, the sun's true yang fire, the high and thick long breathing soil, the sky fallen type by gold, and the vast North Sea water, and combine them with the previously refined yin 5 elements true veins, the yin and yang 5 elements can help each other, and the acquired 5 elements great extinction divine light can be further upgraded to the innate level. Of course, this is probably more difficult than becoming an immortal. For example, Rinshua's Yuan only exists under the 100,000-foot abyss at the end of the North Sea, and it is impossible for an immortal to go down. The only way is to hit the big luck like this time and find a drop in the ancient ruins. Well, if you think about it carefully, as long as there are 4 more similar big lucks, the acquired 5 elements great extinction divine light can be upgraded, which seems not difficult. Suppressing many thoughts, Luo Yan controlled the sword light to continue sinking and penetrate the water film. Under the deep pool, there is a huge underground space, about the size of a football field. There are a dozen stone houses standing side by side around it, and they look identical on the outside. In the center is a large golden field, but it is not planted with wheat, but with some strange plants, like flowers but not flowers, like mushrooms but not mushrooms, with petals as thin as cicada wings, trembling up and down as if breathing. Luo Yang carefully pulled out the Kingpin sword, suspended in the air, as if facing a great enemy, looking around, extremely cautious. Huh. Kingpin sword suddenly said, "Isn't that the golden mushroom jade leaf flower?" "What?" Luo Yang asked. "Golden Ganoderma jade leaf flower." Kingpin sword replied, "5 kinds of Ganoderma are mixed, watered with blood and flesh day and night, and hybridized for more than 100 generations, and the color gradually turns into bright gold. Then irrigate and destroy it with hundreds of poisons, making the body of the Ganoderma more and more fragile, until its thickness is as thin and tender as a petal, and the toxins inside are extremely fierce, and it is the golden Ganoderma jade leaf flower. This thing is used to cultivate the 100 poisons gold and silkworm goo. How could it be planted here? Oh, this is the ruins of the ancient Jiao, right? How do you know this?" Luo Yang said expressionlessly. "Where is the 100 poisons gold and silkworm goo? 10,000 years have passed. The golden Ganoderma jade leaf flower can survive as a half-a-dead thing, but the gold and silkworm goo as a living thing can't last so long." Kingpin sword replied, "They should all be in the form of unhatched insect eggs. Go to the nearby buildings to find out if there are any sealed magic containers such as bowls and pots." Luo Yang did as he was told and searched the surrounding houses one by one. The first room was an ordinary stone room, with only beds, cabinets, tables and chairs in it, all empty. The second room was also an ordinary stone room, with an old futon in the middle of the floor and nothing else. The third room was slightly larger, but it was decorated like a prison, with stone fences separating countless single rooms, covered with spell patterns, and a strange black aura that made people daunted. Luo Yang was not a talisman researcher, and he could not understand it at all, so he did not dare to touch it and left carefully. The interior of the fourth room seemed to be a storage room, with a large number of stone cabinets and stone platforms for storing pill bottles and magic weapons, but now they were all empty. In other words, the owner of this cave did not flee in an emergency, but packed up everything in an orderly manner before leaving this place calmly. In that case, would the so-called golden silkworm give the 100 poisons also? Of course not. Kunlun Mirror reminded, if there was no gold and silkworm goo with the 100 poisons left here, the owner of the cave would not have left the golden jade leaf flower here. That's right. Kingpin sword echoed, the golden jade leaf flower is a half-a-dead creature, and its body is extremely fragile, and it is almost impossible to transplant it elsewhere. Without the golden jade leaf flower, once the gold and silkworm goo with the 100 poisons is hatched in the outside world, it cannot be tamed, and there is immediate danger of backlash against its owner. Similarly, if there is no gold and silkworm goo with the 100 poisons, the golden jade leaf flower is useless. It is better to uproot it, squeeze its juice, and extract the venom. After all, it is also a rare spiritual object. Kunlun Mirror concluded. Since there are golden jade leaf flowers growing here, and the cave formation is still operating, the owner of the cave will most likely leave the gold and silkworm goo with the 100 poisons here as well, seal it somewhere, and plan to come back to deal with it later. Luo Yang pondered for a moment, but did not comment, and just continued to search for the next stone house. After searching 7 or 8 rooms, Luo Yang suddenly stopped breathing when he finally stepped into a room. He saw a palm-sized mortar quietly placed on the stone table, and a bell cover turned upside down on it. The mortar and bell cover were shining, as if they were magic weapons specially used for sealing. Chapter 94. 100 Poison Gold and Silkworm Goo. Arjun, help scan the trap. Luo Yang stood outside the door cautiously, without any movement, and even without using his spiritual sense to explore inside. After all, it was a thing like the gold and silkworm goo of 100 poisons. He absolutely did not believe that the ancient great power did not take any precautions and just placed it in front of him carelessly. Mirror flowers and water moons, shining in the void. Kunlun Mirror was also very straightforward, and directly shone the light over. Then the scene in front of him changed again. The gold and silkworm goo of 100 poisons was still placed on the stone table, but it was just in a different position. In addition, the originally bare ground, walls and ceiling also had countless black line spells drawn on the formation, with cold light dots and gloomy aura. Luo Yang took a quick look and recognized 3 of the formations. The 10,000 souls devouring heart formation, the blood-destroying flesh formation, and the soul-destroying god formation were all long lost and cut off, and only recorded in ancient books. Luo Yang's back was covered with cold sweat. If he were to break in and get caught, he probably wouldn't even have a chance to reincarnate. The owner of the cave here is definitely a ruthless person. However, although he has confirmed that there are many traps inside, he is still somewhat helpless about how to crack or bypass these traps. Well, the Taoist magic of Kingping's sword by the 11th Kangul Yuan has halved the power of non-water Taoist magic, so he can use it for a try. However, even the half power of the formation is not something he can withstand at this time. Why don't I give you an idea? Kunlun Mirror said suddenly, you can't pass through these traps without getting hurt, but she can. She? Before Luo Yan could react, Kingping's sword began to scream. Kunlun Mirror, please be kind. Wait a minute. Luo Yan said calmly, can Kingping's sword remain intact under the power of these traps? It's my natal sword, and the energy between her and me has been initially connected. If it is severely damaged, I will also be hurt. She can. Kunlun Mirror said calmly, if you don't believe me, ask her yourself. Kingping's sword was silent for a long time, and when he saw that Luo Yan was silent, he whispered, I can indeed pass through these traps without getting hurt. As long as you give me an order, Lord Swordmaster. Order. Luo Yan laughed when he heard it, I won't do such a thing. Kingping's sword was slightly stunned when he heard it, only to hear Luo Yan say again, as my natal sword, do you still need the Swordmaster to give you an order in person? Considering the interests of the Swordmaster is something you should do spontaneously. If everything needs my orders, what's the difference between you and a flying sword without a sword spirit? So, in the awkward silence, Kingping's sword finally laughed. Okay, Master Swordmaster. Please step back. After Luo Yan stepped back, Kingping's sword turned into a black light and shot straight into the stone house. Almost at the same time, the entire stone house exploded from the inside. In the rising demonic energy, the shockwaves and smoke that spread in all directions, the black light rolled back again and stopped in front of Luo Yan, revealing the intact sword body and the items held by the mortar and bell cover. Master Swordmaster. Kingping's sword said with a smile, thank you for fulfilling your mission. Very good. Luo Yan nodded, but did not reach out to take it, obviously worried that there might be some toxins on it. The gold and silkworm eggs in here seem to be ready to hatch at any time. Kunlun Mirror reminded, you just need to drop your blood on the bell cover, and it will penetrate into it, refine and hatch these golden silkworms. Luo Yan thought for a moment, and then did as he was told. He stretched out his hand and stopped above the bell cover, pierced his fingertips with the sword energy of Xiao Fu Shangyang, and a few drops of blood oozed out. They fell on the bell cover and immediately seeped into it quickly like falling on a sponge. After a while, the mortar and bell cover began to shake violently. Luo Yan frowned and took a few steps back, and suddenly heard a rustling sound coming from his sea of consciousness. The sound was very shrill, like the cry of a baby, and seemed to come from the gold and silkworms that were refined in the bowl. So hungry, 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 eat flowers, 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 eat flowers. Before the words fell, the bell cover was finally opened. A few white lights quickly escaped from it and rushed to the flower field next to it impatiently. After a while, there was a chirping sound of gnawing. In just a few breaths, about 1/5 of the gold and zi flowers were eaten clean. The 3 gold and silkworms were full and flew back from the flower field. They landed in Luo Yan's right palm and curled up into a ball. Luo Yan looked at the 3 insects indifferently. So ugly. The gold and silkworm with 100 poisons looked like a fat white silkworm with 4 sections. Its skin was not soft meat, but a hard shell unique to insects. Under each body section, there are 2 pairs of tiny claws, a total of 8 pairs. They can grab objects like scarabs and fix their bodies. In addition, on the back of the first and second body sections, there are 2 pairs of beetle like a live trap. The outer layer is a hard shell wing, and the inner layer is a translucent cicada wing. On their heads, there are 4 semi-convex eyeballs like black jade, 1 pair each, with countless grid lines on the surface, which seems to be a strange compound eye structure. Under the eyes, there is a pair of huge mouth parts like longhorn beetles. The surface is purple-black, and it closes from time to time, which makes people a little scared. Probably because of eating jinzi, a kind of golden color is gradually spreading from their head shell to the tail. When the whole body is dyed golden, these 300 poisonous golden silkworms will be considered adults and can be used to drive and kill enemies. Luo Yan flicked his palm and put the gold and silkworm into his sleeve, and then continued to search. After searching the few remaining stone houses, he still found nothing. When the owner of this cave left, he cleaned it up. If it weren't for the fact that the golden jade leaf flower was difficult to transplant, and the 3 poisonous golden silkworms were probably not developed to the state where they could hatch at the time, this trip would have been in vain. Riding the sword light again, passing through the water film and rushing out of the deep pool, Luo Yan was not in a hurry to leave. He just stayed within the range of the Zumidane formation and used his spiritual sense to carefully explore the surroundings. Well, there is no ambush, let's go. He turned into a sword light and soared into the sky, and soon arrived at Danzi Island. The market on Danzi Island has the largest elixir trading market in the East China Sea. Even the alchemists of Yu King Temple have opened sales stores here. Mishi is a rich lady, so she went shopping crazily in the market until her storage bag could no longer hold it. When Luo Yan found her, the young lady was eating elixirs on the roadside as if they were candy beans, throwing them into her mouth one by one. What kind of elixir is that? Luo Yan asked in shock. Sister. You can eat anything you want, but you can't take any elixir. This is a licorice pill. She threw a pill into his mouth. Luo Yan took a sip with his tongue, and it tasted a little sweet. Wait, licorice pills are not elixirs, but snacks that only children eat. Okay, I'm fighting with the demon monks outside, and you are happily shopping and eating snacks here, and you don't care about your junior brother's life or death, right? Luo Yan smiled and said, Sister, the formation has been repaired, and leader has also gone back. Let's go. Hypocritical personality, synchronization value +1. It's fixed so quickly. Shili was surprised. She wanted to continue playing for a few more days. Yes, it went very smoothly. Luo Yan smiled slightly, put his hands in his sleeves, and touched the 300 poison gold and silkworm Q. Chapter 95 Sword Bone, Tears of Love. I reloaded the game and returned to the Shushan line. The Shushan competition was in full swing. If we use the modern sports competition system, the early stage of the Shushan competition is a typical single elimination system. For example, 100 disciples were paired up to fight with swords. The 50 winning disciples would fight with swords in pairs, and so on, and finally the first to 50th place would be decided. And the 50 losing disciples would also fight with swords in the same way, and finally the 51st to 100 place would be decided. There was no messy rules such as the loser group resurrection. The problem with the single elimination system is that the early victory is far more important than the later victory. For example, in the example just now, if you lose the first game, you will not be in the top 50, even if you win every subsequent game, you will only be 51st in the end. And with the random draw, there will always be people who will randomly meet the strong ones on the Immortal Sword ranking. Therefore, there is the second half of the Shushan competition, the Seat Challenge. Now, the first half of the draw and sword duel is almost coming to an end. Ling Yunpo, Zesu, Lin Yulanzan and others still maintained their undefeated record, and the rankings to be competed for on the Immortal Sword ranking had shrunk to the top 20. Juanfan Hegai, who had been defeated once before, also maintained his undefeated record afterwards, but even if he won all the way to the end, his final ranking would not be good, so he would definitely launch a seat challenge in the second half. Due to the continuous sword competitions for many days, the spirits of the foundation building disciples were exhausted, so the Shushan High Level announced a day off today to let everyone rest and readjust their status. Senior Sister ran to the interior of King Luo Peak again to report the good news to the master. Ling Yunpo planned to take this opportunity to go to the market at the foot of the mountain to buy some wine and food to celebrate with Senior Sister. Unlike Cunning, the Shushan Shanking sect and mortal villages coexist, and the sword immortals are high on many peaks, and the people live in the river valleys between the peaks. The corresponding markets are also opened in these river valley villages, where mortals and immortals live together. In order to avoid being harassed by villagers, for example, asking for elixirs, etc. Shushan disciples often put away flying swords and other items when entering the market to avoid attracting the attention of outsiders. Ling Yunpo entered the wine shop and asked the shopkeeper to get a pot of wine, the best monkey wine, and bought some braised beef and 100-year-old Angjin for use. While waiting for the boss to cut the meat in Angjin, he suddenly heard a few Shushan disciples chatting at the wine table opposite. In this competition, those strong men don't need to be mentioned. The only thing to talk about is the junior brother of the mowing sword fairy, who directly killed the Kantai sword fairy Juanfan Hegai and grabbed the second seat. Is it the man who was refining key and washing marrow before and killed the disciples of Ziyun Peak? Someone asked. That's right. Hey, what was that man's name? I only vaguely remember that his last name was Lin. Everyone was silent. I remembered it. Suddenly one of them slammed the table and said, the day before yesterday, I just heard someone talking about this person's name in the opening bet of this competition. The first seat must be the grass-cutting sword immortal, there is no other possibility. but who will get the second seat after the seat challenge is over is the biggest highlight of this bet. There are only 4 competitors, the 3 strongest people in the previous sessions, plus the junior brother of the grass-cutting sword Immortal who suddenly showed up this time. These 4 are the 4 heavenly kings of this competition. Some people summarize it in 4 words, which is broken mountains and divided seas, broken moon and broken clouds. Hearing this, everyone said, broken mountains is Lingyulan's Novjingan Peak, divided sea is Juanfanhai of Wanglong Peak, broken moon is Guanchanu of Kwazu Peak, the sword is named Broken Moon, and broken cloud is, I think it is the junior brother of the grass-cutting sword Immortal, whose name is Lingpoon. The disciple next to him exclaimed, wow, does it mean that to become a strong man, he must first come up with a majestic and honoring name? That's true. Hey, what do you think of changing my name to Bashan? Ling Yunpo took the wine pot and snacks from the shopkeeper and turned away expressionlessly. My name is Ling Yunpo. Bastard. Ling Yunpo returned to King Luo Peak in a depressed mood and saw Nzisu drinking in the pavilion behind. Sister. He pressed down the sword light and dropped to the ground, picked up the wine and food in his hand, and said with a smile, why are you drinking by yourself here? Nzisu sighed and said, Junior brother, do you know? It is said that the rewards for the top 3 in this Shushang competition include gold mercury elixir liquid. Oh? Ling Yunpo was shocked, and smiled, since senior sister specifically mentioned it, it seems to be an extremely precious thing. More than precious. Nzisu shook her head and said, after entering the Watfu level, drinking a spoonful of it can be equivalent to a decade of hard practice. That's great. Ling Yunpo smiled with surprise, senior sister is at the Watfu level, this thing is just right for senior sister to use. No. Nzisu said seriously, senior sister will leave it to you. Ling Yunpo. Even though he had guessed it in his heart, he was still stunned when he heard senior sister and confirm it in person. This is related to the level of the elixir. It's your path and future, senior sister. I don't want it. Ling Yunpo refused hastily, but Nzisu held his hand and said firmly, Junior brother, listen to me. Master has been in seclusion for too long. In recent years, our King Luo Peak has been increasingly targeted. We are now surrounded by enemies. The last month's salary was deducted, and your sword fighting lottery was manipulated this time. These are the best examples. In the final analysis, our King Luo Peak not only has no Yuning elders, but also no Jingdans Hinran. It all depends on you and me to support it. We can't go on like this. Nzisu said firmly, and the resolute emotion in his eyes seemed to condense into substance, almost piercing his chest. Junior brother. I have made up my mind. In order to protect the King Luo Peak Taoist tradition, I will form a pill within 30 years. The time for the transformation palace is too short. Even if I drink the golden mercury pill liquid, it is useless, it is better to leave it to you. Ling Yunpo opened his mouth, but couldn't say anything. 30 years sounds long, but for a transformation palace cultivator, it is almost too short. For ordinary cultivators at the Watfu stage, if they start to cultivate at the age of 20, they will refine their ki for 60 years, cleanse their marrow for 10 years, and often spend 100 years on the Watfu stage. When there are only a little over 10 years left of their 200 years of life, they will start to try the final Dan formation. The purpose is to improve the grade of the Dan formation as much as possible, which is related to the future of the entire Jindan stage cultivation, and it must not be taken lightly. Nzisu has been cultivating for almost 30 years at the Watfu stage. If she cultivates for another 30 years, it will be a 60-year Watfu process. With her cultivation aptitude, if she can form a Dan in 60 years, the Dan will be at most the 4th or 5th grade, and she will definitely not be able to catch up with the 3rd grade. The 4th or 5th grade of Dan means that the next step is the most perfect Jaya takes Siam, and the Yuning will be capped at the middle grade. Without a high-grade Yuning, it is impossible to become a Daluo Jingxian in the subsequent ascension stage. At most, you can only kill the 3 corpses and become a celestial immortal. It can be said that one step by step behind, without even a chance to make up. If it were Ling Yunpo himself, he would ask himself that even if he respected and loved senior sister very much, he would not joke about such a thing. But senior sister was willing to give up her brighter future for her own sake, just to become a Jindan Shinram as soon as possible and protect her. Senior sister, his voice was a little suppressed. Well, I'll find a way. Ling Yunpo suddenly jumped up, grabbed Nzisu's hands tightly, and said sternly, I will find a way to change the situation where King Luo Peak is surrounded by enemies, starting from this Shushang competition. Unyielding personality, synchronization value +1. In the sea of consciousness, The reminder sound of Kunlun mirror began to flash on the screen, but Ling Yunpo ignored it completely, just gritted his teeth and swore. Senior sister, please don't say such ridiculous words as 30 years to form a pill again. If you joke about your future again, I will go to the bottom of the Taoist temple and hit my head against the wall of Master's retreat. Junior brother. Zisu's eyes immediately turned red. He was about to angrily teach him not to make such a poisonous oath, but he noticed that there was also a stubbornness and persistence in Ling Yunpo's eyes. When the master used his body to block the attack of the Shadow Elder in order to protect himself, the cold expression on his face was almost exactly the same as the resolute emotion in the eyes of the junior brother at this time. She stared at the junior brother in a daze, and suddenly a kind of sad sense of mission rose in her heart. Perhaps our King Luo peak lineage is such a sword bone that cannot be blunted by cutting or broken by hammering. In order to protect the important people around us at the risk of our lives, we will be like a flying sword burning the origin, shooting straight out without looking back. But, junior brother, now, it's my turn to protect you like the master did. Zisu, who was in grief, suddenly stretched out her hands and hugged him tightly. Ling Yunpo. Junior brother. Zisu rested her head on his shoulder and couldn't help crying and said, don't say such words again in the future. Her tears slid down her cheeks, but she hugged Ling Yunpo tighter, her voice choked. Don't say such words, you must be well, even if it's for senior sister. Chapter 96 Broken Moon, Broken Mountain. The next day, Ling Yunpo went to the sword competition venue with a wooden face. He was numb and didn't want to talk. After bullying my senior sister like this, I just want to wipe out the entire Shushan sect. Let's start with the opponent in the Shushan competition. He went on stage, without saying a word, pulled out the Kingping sword, and his body and sword became one, and he directly attacked his opponent with a big move. This Kingping sword, in the previous Deep Pool ruins, was able to withstand the various sinister formations of the ancient great powers and roll back the container of the 100 poisons gold and silkworm goo, and the sword body was intact, which shows that the material of the sword must be extraordinary. Could it be that the flying swords of these Shushan fellows are more powerful than the formations of the ancient great powers? As expected, the sword cultivator on the opposite side, who was originally ranked in the early 20th place on the Immortal Sword list, had never seen anyone use a big move as soon as he entered the stage, and hurriedly activated the Taoism on his natal sword. There was a flash of yellow light on the sword, and then it moved forward to try to intercept the Kingping sword, but was directly split into two by Ling Yunpo, who was one with the sword. The black sword light continued to move, and pierced through the chest of the unprepared opponent and sent him out of the arena. Seeing this, the people around were shocked again. As the name of Broken Mountains and Seas, Shattered Moon and Broken Cloud spread, Ling Yunpo's sword fight gradually became famous. Half of the audience who were attracted were planning to laugh at him, while the other half really wanted to study his swordsmanship or collect his intelligence to prepare for the next sword fight. At this time, seeing him kill the opponent in one move and even cut off his natal sword, everyone was really a little bit overwhelmed. The person who just lost on the opposite side was Zhu Zian, rank 23rd, a strong man on the Immortal Sword ranking. In the previous sword fight, he also won all the way, and most of the opponents had their natal swords cut off by him. The reason is that Zhu Zian's natal sword is the 10th level Earth-type flying sword Qin Zhao. The Taoist method on the sword can increase the weight of the flying sword, greatly improve the strength, hardness and true essence of the flying sword, thereby greatly enhancing the strength of the immortal sword itself. A flying sword of a slightly lower grade will crack after being chopped by it. If you don't admit defeat quickly, the second chopped will basically end up breaking. Now it's the other way round. Ling Yunpo's body and sword are combined to directly chopped off the natal sword. Considering that the combination of body and sword does not require swordsmanship attainments, it can only be said that the strength of Ling Yunpo plus Kingping sword has far exceeded the resistance limit of Zhu Zian plus Qin Zhao sword. Is this Poon sword immortal so terrifying? Ling Yunpo walked down the duel arena, folded his arms and said nothing, and was about to walk towards the duel venue of his senior sister. But he saw 6 or 7 Shushan disciples blocking him. The leader was a female swordsman, tall, about 1.8 meters, with hard and sharp features, somewhat similar to Guanzhen. Are you Zisu's junior brother, Ling Poon? The other party asked directly. It's Ling Yunpo, not Poon. Ling Yunpo frowned and said. Ling Yunpo's name is not as good as Ling Poon. The female swordsman smiled faintly. I'm Guanzhen from Kuzu Peak. She looked up and down at Ling Yunpo for a moment, then showed a satisfied look and said, You are very good, but it's a pity that I probably won't have the chance to compete with you in this Shushan competition. After the competition is over, you can come to Mingjiu Tower to have a chat. After saying that, Yuan Jinu smiled and left with the Shushan disciples. Ling Yunpo. In normal times, he would probably call him a lunatic and forget about it. But now Ling Yunpo has realized that it is not difficult to defeat these people, but how to break the current dilemma of enemies everywhere. As long as the trump card is used, not to mention winning the sword duel, it is not difficult to even cut off Gyeonchinu natal sword, but will this convince Kwezu Peak? Even if Gyeonchinu is defeated, it is impossible to defeat the Peak Master of Kwezu Peak, Byun Sinran, and this person can bring more unsolvable troubles to King Luo Peak as long as he says a few words to the Shushan high-level officials, or keeps silent when other forces take advantage of the situation. Sister Am's idea is not wrong. The master was initially forced to retreat, and the surrounding malice was one after another. It is indeed necessary to take ruthless actions as soon as possible to establish authority. But after establishing authority, the surrounding situation has stabilized, and it is necessary to change the strategy and focus on appeasement and making allies. But no one taught Sister Anne these things. She is still habitually tough, but can't break through the difficulties faced by King Luo Peak just thinking that it is because she is not strong enough. As long as she becomes a Jintan Xinran, all problems will be solved. This is the thinking of a test taker. Ling Yunpo silently made up his mind to go to the appointment and make allies after the sword duel today. Then he came to the competition venue of Sister Anne. Suddenly, a large amount of snow and wind rolled up on the field, as white as goose feathers and as sharp as a blade. The sword cultivator on the opposite side immediately burst into blood and was covered with wounds, and turned into light and disappeared. This is the frost sword drill of Senior Sister Anne, which is famous for its large range and high attack. It is said that each snowflake is transformed by a piece of sword energy, and can be controlled by her consciousness, dancing and flying freely on the field. However, Ling Yunpo had seen Su Jian's overwhelming sword energy attack in the Li Palace secret realm before, so he didn't feel much about Senior Sister Anne's duo. After Senior Sister Anne finished the game, Ling Yunpo came to greet her and smiled and reported the results of the previous battle. The two chatted and rested for a while, and the results of the next round of draws came out again. Ling Yunpo said goodbye to Senior Sister and found the corresponding competition venue again, and saw Lin Yulanzan standing on the stage with his hands behind his back. Brother Lin, Ling Yunpo said with a bow, I have been grateful for your guidance many times before, and I will always remember your kindness. But this time, the competition is related to my future, so I can't give in. Lin Yulanzan nodded when he heard it, and then he showed a gratified smile and said, Of course. You don't have to worry about anything, let's just fight and see who is the real one. Okay. Ling Yunpo pulled out the Kingping sword, and the lazy sword flew out of the sword box, and said loudly, I will take the first move. According to the ancient etiquette of sword fighting, the younger generation should attack first, but now everyone will do anything to win in a sword fight, and no one cares about these etiquettes anymore. But Lin Yulanzan has always been old-fashioned and upright. Seeing that Ling Yunpo actually abided by the etiquette of sword fighting, his liking for him immediately increased, so he also pulled out the Kaiyu and Champing swords, signaling him to attack first. The people outside the field looked at it, and their expressions were very strange. What the hell is this picture of the brother being friendly and the brother being humble? Isn't Ling Pun a disciple of the grass-cutting sword Immortal? How come he still has etiquette? Since it was Ling Yulanzan's sword duel, many disciples from Jingan Peak came to watch. Seeing Ling Yunpo being polite to Ling Yulanzan, they proudly declared to their fellow disciples, It's because our Jingan Peak senior brother Lin has such a gracious demeanor that makes people feel impressed. Even this Pun sword immortal, who beats other sword immortals like a grandfather beating his grandson, is still polite to our senior brother Lin. The next moment, Ling Yunpo was seen flying with both hands, and the Kingping and laser swords shot out from the left and right directions. He also launched after the new rain in the empty mounting, and countless water-based sword ki quickly went around and launched a sneak attack from behind. He actually used thundering means at the beginning to suppress Lin Yulanzan fiercely from 3 directions. Chapter 97. Win at all costs. Facing the 3-sided attack, Lin Yulanzan remained calm and just made steady gestures. The Chanping sword resisted the attack of the laser sword, and the Kaiyu sword flashed with light, and suddenly split into 2. One sword entangled with the Kingping sword, and the other sword protected Lin Yulanzan's back, blocking all the water-based sword energy. This is one of Lin Yulanzan's signature Taoist methods of Kaiyu sword, double ridges become peaks, which can instantly activate the earth-based true essence to form a second Kaiyu sword, which is flexible to operate and can be used with fingers like arms. Its power is no different from the original sword. When his opponent and he dual swords, they often just use the flying sword to hold the Caillou sword, and then see the light flash on it, and then another sword flies out, quickly bypassing the defense and slashing at the enemy. Even if they know it in advance, it is impossible to guard against it. The reason why Ling Yunpo attacked from 3 sides at the beginning was to force him to use this double ridges become peaks, otherwise he would have to be on guard at any time during the sword fight, which would be too much mental pressure and really hard to bear. Seeing the second Caillou sword appear, Ling Yunpo immediately chanted a spell silently and activated green mist cover in the Kangling Mountains. A thick fog suddenly rose on the field, as thick as a white silk mask, and one could not see one's hand in front of one's face. But Lin Yulanzhen was well prepared, and he also chanted a spell silently, activating the second Taoist method of the Caillou sword, flying sand and rolling stones. Countless sand and stones rolled, and sword energy was everywhere, forming a tornado nearly 3 feet high on the spot, which directly cleared the thick fog into a circle. Ling Yunpo was not surprised by this, but just quietly and quickly retreated. After a series of sword fights, his usual swordsmanship and Taoist methods had long been studied by the Shushan disciples who were watching. It was not surprising that the opponent would target his green mist cover in the Kangling Mountains. He remained calm, but Lin Yulanzhen exclaimed, because the range of the thick fog cleared by the flying sand and rolling stones was much smaller than he expected. Although the Kingping sword is at the 10th level and the Caillou sword is only at the 9th level, the earth in the 5 elements restrains water, and Lin Yunpo is only at the Shixi level, the purity of the true key is not as good as the true essence. Logically, it should be slightly inferior in the confrontation between Taoism and magic. As a result, flying sand and walking stone was obviously suppressed by the opponent, which can only mean that the fairy sword suspected to be the Kingping sword may be higher than imagined, so that the thick fog did not stay at the level of Taoism, and it is likely to be a higher level forbidden method. Thinking of this, the Taoism of flying sand and walking stones is ended, and the thick fog has spread again, instantly covering Lin Yulanzhen. Lin Yulanzhen calmly scanned the surroundings, his expression calm and composed, and chanted the mantra again in his heart. The Wangxibang sword is good at calculation, and of course it will not rely on a certain trick to win or lose. The 3rd level of Taoism on the Caillou sword, stone breaking the sky, is another killer move he prepared for Ling Yunpo. Countless dense earth yellow sword ki burst out from the Caillou sword, sweeping in all directions in a fan shape. Wherever the sword energy passed, the thick fog boiled, but it was not restrained by the Taoist method, but was purely swept by the shockwave raised by the sword energy. Although Lin Yunpo was obscured by the fog, he did not ignore the damage of the sword energy and could only dodge in a panic. After dodging one wave, another wave came. Lin Yulanzhen actually used all his strength to activate the Taoist method on the sword and carried out continuous and indiscriminate attacks on the entire sword competition venue. Although the audience outside the venue could not see the position of the 2 people in the fog, they could see waves of sword energy penetrating the thick fog, constantly hitting the restrictions on the periphery of the venue, and then being eliminated. The power and corresponding consumption of the earth-shattering sword energy can be adjusted by Lin Yulanzhen at will. At this time, he adjusted the power and consumption to the lowest, only pursuing the maximum number and coverage to penetrate the layers of thick fog around him. Even if the line of sight cannot penetrate, the sword energy can tear through the thick fog. Once the sword energy in a certain direction is blocked, it means that Ling Yunpo's position is also exposed. Since the sword energy covered the entire field, he had to keep moving to avoid being hit. Even if he just ran away, Lin Yulanzhen could still use precise calculations to gradually cut and reduce his range of activities with a large amount of sword energy until Ling Yunpo had no way to retreat, and then launch a one-time fatal attack on him. With Juan Fanhai's previous experience in mind, Lin Yulanzhen certainly couldn't fight him in pure swordsmanship under such circumstances. Ling Yunpo dodged several times and found that his range of activities was rapidly shrinking under the sword energy. He also instantly understood the opponent's strategic thinking. Can't be hit by the sword energy. But if you just run away, you are still in the opponent's calculations, and you will definitely be forced into a dead end in the end. What to do? Ling Yunpo's mind turned quickly. If you want to make a feint to the east and attack in the west, you can use the Kingping sword or the Lizi sword to break these sword energies at a long distance to prevent exposing your own position. But Lin Yulanzhen couldn't have expected this. He only needs to shoot out the long sword in time to entangle the flying sword in the exposed position, and I will have to split my attention, manipulating the flying sword to assist while maintaining my own movement and evasion. A jing. Ling Yunpo suddenly said, let's save the game at one location first, and then I'll run to another location to read the game, and you'll teleport me to the last saved location. Is that okay? No way. Lin Jing was speechless. After all, this is a fair duel. You're using me to cheat. Isn't that a bit bad? How can this be called cheating? Ling Yunpo widened his eyes and said, the so-called duel is to use all the means you can use and do your best to win. This is a manifestation of respect for the opponent. Lin Jing was speechless after hearing what he said, and after a while he said, you can only teleport to a location, not travel through time, but you can't abuse my teleportation. After all, it consumes spiritual energy. Well, I can only teleport you once for this duel. Once is enough. Ling Yunpo laughed. Save the game here. After saving the game, Ling Yunpo began to run. He quickly activated the sword control technique and flew directly to the edge of the sword energy range, slashing out the Kingping sword. The Kingping sword directly hit the sword energy and instantly annihilated it. Almost at the same time, Lin Yulanzhen had already looked in his direction, and the long-armed sword turned into a stream of blazing fire and shot towards him. Ling Yunpo smiled slightly, and then controlled the Kingping sword to fight with it, while continuing to move. Lin Yulanzhen was not willing to let him go. While urging the long-armed sword to entangle it, he continued to stimulate the earth-shattering sea of sword energy to completely block the surrounding space. Then he silently chanted the spell in his heart, preparing to launch a fatal attack. In an instant, Ling Yunpo had rushed across the half-court, and while reaching out to grab the Kingping sword, he immediately called the Kunlun mirror to read the file. Then, both the man and the sword disappeared from the spot. Lin Yulanzhen had just pinched the Taoist formula when he found that the long-armed sword had lost its target. He judged that junior brother Ling was trying to get out of sight again, and immediately launched the Taoist method with all his strength. Countless earth-yellow sword energy suddenly gathered into a giant sword, slashing towards the huge range in front. This slash was a full 180 degrees, covering almost half of the field. But he didn't hit anything, which made Lin Yulanzhen sluggish for a moment, and his face suddenly changed. It was too late to move again. The thunder sword behind him came with the jade pivot thunder, and directly hit his back, teleporting him directly outside the venue. Outside the venue, Lin Yulanzhen looked up in confusion. His expression was completely unbelievable. For the Wangxiang sword lineage he majored in, calculation is the foundation of swordsmanship. Even if he lost, he had to figure out why he lost. However, in the battle just now, he didn't even know how the opponent escaped from his attack range. You know, before the giant sword was slashed, he had already covered the remaining space of the sword arena with sword energy, leaving no place for him to hide. How did he get behind me? Puzzled, Lin Yulanzhen regained his spirits and planned to go to Ling junior brother to ask. Even if the other party refused to reveal a specific principle for the sake of confidentiality, it would be good to get a few words. He had just taken a few steps towards Ling Yunpo and raised his hand to call out junior brother Ling when he saw Nzisu coming over and talking to him with a smile. Since the Shushang competition, no matter who finished the competition first, the two brothers would go to the other's venue to wait. After they said a few words intimately, Nzisu took his arm and rode away with the sword light. Lin Yulanzhen. Chapter 98. How can I not forget you if I haven't asked about your feelings? King Luo Peak, behind that Taoist temple. In the courtyard beside the stream, Nzisu and Ling Yunpo drank a few cups together, and their faces became a little drunk and flushed. She was really happy. The first time junior brother defeated Yuan Fan Hegai, the onlookers might have attributed it to luck and lucky. The second time he defeated Lin Yulanzhen, he really established his prestige. Lucky. You try to be lucky twice in a row. Not to mention the people from Shushan who were watching, even Nzisu began to doubt herself. I probably really underestimated junior brother before. My brother has the potential to be the top of the immortal sword list. Well, wait, as long as I lose to junior brother in the last sword fight, won't he really take the top spot? Nzisu certainly doesn't care whether she is the top or the second. It's better to let junior brother take the top spot instead of being the top spot herself. I will be the second on the list and protect junior brother by his side. Whoever defeats my junior brother and takes the top spot, I will go up and beat the other person to the point where he can't take care of himself, take back the top spot, and then deliberately lose to my junior brother. Thinking about it this way, it seems pretty good. Her soft face was slightly drunk, and the corners of her mouth were slightly raised. That stunning charming smile, and the royal sister style revealed in it, made Lin Yunpo stunned for a moment. When he came to his senses, he hurriedly lowered his head to drink to hide the embarrassed expression on his face. The two drank for a long time. The sky gradually darkened, and the moon was on the treetops. Ling Yunpo supported the half-drunk senior sister and slowly walked back to the Taoist temple. For people who practice cultivation, getting drunk is a joke. Senior sister is drunk by herself, so let her be happy. After settling senior sister in the room, Ling Yunpo went down the mountain to buy wine. Recently he had won consecutive sword duels, and the consumption of spiritual wine in the Taoist temple was amazing, and all of it was drunk by senior sister. Arriving at the Hu village and stepping into the Fangsha restaurant, Ling Yunpo stared at the brands of various wines for a while, and suddenly someone called him, "Junior brother Ling." Ling Yunpo turned around and saw Yunqianu sitting at a wine table by the window in the hall, smiling and waving at him. "Why is this guy looking for me?" "Oh, she had made an appointment with me at the MA Golden Summit before, saying we can talk when we are free." Ling Yunpo came to the wine table and sat down opposite Yunqianu, only to hear her ask leisurely, "Wine? Tea? The guest is at the host's discretion." Ling Yunpo replied. "Did you know?" Yunqianu poured him a glass of wine. "Your senior sister and I first met at this table." She calmly filled the glass and pushed it in front of Ling Yunpo, and continued, "You are much more polite than her. I will take it as a compliment." Ling Yunpo picked up the glass, but did not drink it, just spun it in his hand. "You are wondering why I came to see you?" Yunqianu said calmly, "Nothing, just to meet Ling Poon, who is very popular recently." "It's Ling Yunpo, not Ling Poon." He frowned and corrected. "But Ling Poon sounds better." Yunqianu waved her hand. "Let's not talk about that." Ling Yunpo felt a little uncomfortable. He found that this senior sister Yuan was too strong and always dominated the conversation. "So, do you plan to continue to follow your master's path?" Yunqianu raised her glass and drank it all, but her eyes were staring directly at him. "Is it to forget love, or to ask about love?" Ling Yunpo. Seeing his brows twisted together, Yunqianu sneered and put down the wine glass. "This who hasn't told you yet, has she?" She raised 3 fingers. "Although each peak of the Shanqing sect of Shushan has its own sword school, it is not enough to form a Taoist tradition. There are only 3 roots that can really be called a Taoist tradition. Know feelings, forget feelings, and ask about feelings. I would like to hear more about it." Ling Yunpo sighed and said, "I really don't understand. How can love rise to the level of a Taoist tradition?" "Because it is related to a question that directly points to the heart of Tao." Yunqianu said slowly, "As a sword fairy, why should you draw your sword?" "Of course, for immortality." Ling Yunpo answered without thinking. "Immortality?" Yunqianu sneered. "If it is for immortality, if the Shushan high level wants to kill your senior sister one day, you should hide to save your life and watch your senior sister being executed. Will you do that?" Ling Yunpo was speechless. "Actually, this answer is not wrong." Yunqianu suppressed her mocking expression and said calmly, "For longevity, for great freedom, for the pursuit of the ultimate swordsmanship, in essence, they are all for oneself. This is the tradition of Zhuqingliu. If you practice the tradition of Zhuqingliu, you must be self-centered and cannot have any concerns in the world. Otherwise, you'll have inner demons, which will cause your cultivation to stagnate at the least, and shake your heart of Taoism and become possessed by demons at the worst. But you are not that kind of person." She stared straight at Ling Yunpo and said in a deep voice, "What kind of person do you think I am, senior sister?" Ling Yunpo asked back, "Forget about love, or ask about love." Yunqianu said frankly, "The so-called Forget Love School is actually a branch of Absolute Love School. They first acknowledge the existence of love, then immerse themselves in it, and finally withdraw from it and achieve transcendence. Absolute Love School regards love as a scourge and does not easily get involved. If you are tempted by worldly desires, they will even kill the whole family to remove the flaws, but Forget Love School is different. Pick it up, put it down, and stop being obsessed with it. This is the most important thing. Your master, 7 Killings Master, originally followed the lineage of Forget Love School." "Originally?" Ling Yunpo instantly became interested. "Yes, originally." Yunqianu drank a glass of wine. "He once had a wife and daughter in the mortal world, didn't you know?" "I heard a little about it." Ling Yunpo was slightly startled and replied, "The way to practice the Forget Love stream is to find a mortal as a spouse, and live with and love each other." Yunqianu sighed. "The lifespan of mortals will eventually come to an end. When the spouse dies, the sword immortal will experience the pain of separation and finally let go, and the Forget Love stream will be considered to have entered the Tao. But there is a key here, that is, there must be no offspring. She changed the subject and said with a chuckle, not only did the 7 Killings Immortal have a daughter with the other party, he also taught her to practice Taoism and took her back to Shushan. This is not the Forget Love stream at all, but the Asking Love stream. The 7 Killings Immortal sword was made for his wife and daughter. So, Master can't let go? Ling Yunpo asked with a look of disappointment. I don't know the details. Yuan Chenu shook his head. So, why do you think the Shushan peaks are so against your King Luo peak? Is it Su Jian who kill people like crazy? Or is it Nzisu who kill people like crazy? Neither is entirely correct. Behind this, it is actually a dispute over the Taoism. Ling Yunpo was silent for a long time. Why is the Taoism of the Asking Love stream so unpopular? He looked puzzled. Have you read the 2 lines of poetry beside the sword pond? Yuan Chenu asked instead of answering. Suming, why not? Ling Yunpo whispered, really ignorant, how ignorant? The ancient Taoist tradition of asking about love was completely cut off from that time. Yuan Chenu smiled slightly, so I am looking forward to you King Luo Peak being able to walk this road again, whether it is Keisha's Hinran, Mzesu, or you. She stood up and put the wine money on the table. After all, being a barren woman and marrying a mortal are really boring. Yuan Chenu left the wine table gracefully, and saw that all the guests at the surrounding tables stood up and followed Yuan Chenu away. Ling Yunpo then realized that in order to create a safe environment for the two to talk, this restaurant had long been occupied by the disciples of Kuzu Peak. Seeing the store owner and the waiters coming out of the back hall trembling with fear, Ling Yunpo sighed. I have learned a new way to pretend. Waiter, get me a pot of good wine. He said loudly, I'll take it away. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Mundo Fanfic Novelers, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelers. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 99 Kunlun's Secret Realm, Song Headtrap. The sword of the 7 killers was drawn for his wife and daughter. Until Ling Yunpo returned to King Luo Peak, Yuan Chenu's words seemed to still echo in his ears. Then why did I draw my sword? I don't think you need to be too entangled. Kunlun Mirror suddenly said, unless you choose the heartless flow, otherwise, whether you forget love or ask for love, you have to like someone first. If you have never had love, how can you ask for love? How can you forget love? A Jing. Ling Yunpo said solemnly, I'm not considering which route to take. His tone suddenly became low. I'm just curious, on the road to the throne of the sky, who is worthy of me to draw my sword for her? Kunlun Mirror. I'm such a fool to worry about who you fall in love with. Okay, I'll go away by myself. It was about to dive into the sea of consciousness and stop talking, only to hear Ling Yunpo say again. Load the file, I want to go to Kunlun to rest. Kunlun Mirror mechanically read. Point 1. Kunlun Tai King Sect, Jin Line. Character Identity. Kyo Chains Iron. Mirror Flower Water Moon template overwritten, in the process of time travel. After returning to the Jinline cave, Kyo Chains Iron continued to breathe in and out to refine his ki and improve his cultivation. As mentioned earlier, among the 3 orthodox sects, the lifestyle of the Kunlun sect is most in line with the Immortals' tranquility and indifference. There is no Wonderworld atmosphere of the Shushan King sect, where swords are often fought, nor is there the fireworks atmosphere of the Penglayu King temple with all kinds of interpersonal relationships. There is a lot of free time to spend, and you can do whatever you want. Compared with those direct disciples who stay in the cave all day, Kyo Chains Iron is more keen on socializing. After all, he has to rely on a large group of lovely junior brothers and sisters to brush the synchronization value, so he has to go out often to lead the team to train and do tasks. It is precisely because of this that not only is his reputation gradually rising among the outer disciples, but even the inner disciples also admire and make friends with him. People call him Kyo Da Chief, who is eager for justice, and that refers to Kyo Chains Iron. On this day, Kyo Chains Iron and Zhu Yingyan were playing the keen and flute together at Yinlang, when suddenly 2 people descended with sword lights. Kyo Chains Iron looked carefully and found that they were all inner disciples of this generation. They had made friends with him before and were considered acquaintances. One of them was Jing Yuan, the direct disciple of Elder Ling Bao, and the other was Wu Baoyue, the inner disciple of Elder Yixi. The 2 people landed on the ground and bowed to Kyo Chains Iron and Zhu Yingyan. After greeting and exchanging pleasantries, Jing Yuan got straight to the point and said, I wonder if senior brother Kyo and senior sisters Yu are convenient to join us in exploring a newly discovered paradise. Qiu Changtian was surprised and asked, "I wonder where this paradise is." Seeing that he did not refuse immediately, Ubabui breathed a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "It is an ancient relic located in the southern part of Chongqing district. The entrance is covered by an illusion formation, but Brother Jing and I discovered it by accident. After entering, it is another vast space. In the distance, there are pavilions, columns and waterside pavilions, as well as ethereal fairy music and auspicious clouds surrounding it. It is not like an ordinary cave. In the near distance, there is a vast sea of clouds, with only a cable bridge leading to the front. There is a god stationed at the entrance of the cable bridge. He is wearing golden armor and silver robes, holding a long sword, and is extremely difficult to deal with. Brother Jing and I probably are not its opponents, so we can only ask for help from Senior Brother Qiu and Senior Sister Zhu. How about we explore the paradise together and divide the treasures equally afterwards?" After listening to this, Zhu Yingyan pondered and said, "From your description, I'm afraid it's not an ordinary relic cave, but a fairy palace secret realm." Senior Sister Zhu, don't jump to conclusions. Jing Yuan said quickly, "If we ask for help from our master and elders on the grounds of the fairy palace secret realm, and it turns out that it's just an ordinary relic, isn't that making a fuss over nothing?" "That's right." Ubabui also echoed, "Let's try to defeat the golden armor god first, go in and explore to confirm it clearly." Zhu Yingyan sneered slightly, knowing that the two people were not sincere, and actually just wanted to get a share of the secret realm first, and after making enough benefits, report it to the sect for processing. However, if a person does not work for himself, he will be punished by heaven and earth, and it is normal to have such an idea. So Zhu Yingyan looked at Qiu Changtian and signaled him to make a decision. Qiu Changtian hesitated. He knew that the secret realm and the relic were completely different things. The latter might just be the cave of an ancient cultivator, at best, with some formations, talismans, mechanisms and other traps that can be cracked. The former is a special space specially designed, often accompanied by extremely complex and powerful restrictions, which are impossible to crack. If it is a trial type like the live-going secret realm, it is okay, but I am afraid of encountering a very unfriendly restriction that wants to kill people at any time. Once you are deeply trapped in it, your life and death will not be independent. But at this time, not to mention Jing Yuan and Ubabui who are full of expectations, even the junior sister is watching from the side. If you shrink back and hesitate, it will damage the reputation of the Chief Qiu, but the collapse of the personality and the plummeting synchronization value will be a bigger trouble. I can only agree to it first, and then act according to the situation later. Since Jing and Du can get out of it after exploration, it doesn't think it is a secret realm that is difficult to enter and exit. If you really encounter troubles that cannot be solved, just retreat in time at worst. There is still the Kunlun mirror. To be honest, Qiu Changtian said gently, I don't lack any treasures. The two of them showed a look of disappointment, but they heard Senior Brother Qiu change his tone and said, but unexplored secret realms are often full of dangers. If I let the two junior brothers go alone, I would also feel uneasy. It's better to accompany you. Jing and Du were overjoyed to hear this, and hurriedly promised to make concessions in the distribution of spoils and not let Senior Brother Qiu suffer any loss. They also secretly felt lucky in their hearts. The reason why they chose to ask for help from Qiu Changtian was also because of the reputation of this chief Senior Brother Guan Weixing, who thought he would not take advantage of them. If it were other senior brothers and sisters, they might ask for a lot of money, such as priority selection of treasures, 70% and 30% of the spoils, etc. Which was really disgusting. Now it seems that Senior Brother Qiu was really as his name suggests, and he is very righteous. After a little repair, the four of them flew up on their swords and flew to the southern foot of the Layer City area in the western section of the Kunlun Mountains. After an unknown amount of time, in a valley, the four finally pressed down the sword light, and then Jing Yuan took the lead and led everyone into the opposite crevice. After a few steps forward, the figures of the people gradually faded, and finally disappeared completely. After a while, another sword light came from a distance and landed in front of the crevice. It was Songhe. He looked at the entrance to the secret realm in front of him, his face changed several times, and finally became gloomy. The clues to this secret realm were not actually discovered by Jingyu for the first time, but Songhe got them by chance in a certain adventure. He spent nearly half a month to investigate the entrance to the secret realm, and decided to use it as a trap to kill Qiu Changtian. The reason is very simple. In the secret realm, the divination and exploration of the outside world can be blocked. As long as Qiu Chang's time dies in it, the cause and effect will be covered by the prohibition of the secret realm, and it cannot be calculated and traced from the outside world. Therefore, he cleverly let Jiangan to accidentally discover the clues. He also knew that the two agreed in bold. If they could not solve the gatekeeper, they would most likely ask for help from the popular Chief Qiu instead of reporting to the sect. In this way, he was sure to lead Qiu Chang's time into the hub. Song He had no idea what was behind the gatekeeper, but he knew that the secret realm here had a very long origin and a high rank, and it was impossible for a foundation-building disciple to crack it. It was really a good deal to exchange Qiu Chang's time's life and the position of the chief for a secret realm that he could not benefit from. After all, the magic weapon to open the entrance to the secret realm was obtained by Song He through an adventure. Song He took out a small incense burner from his sleeve, placed it on the groove in the ground before the crack in the rock, took out a long incense stick, inserted it on it and lit it, chanting the mantra. Thick earth carries things, mountains and rivers close themselves. Seal. As soon as the voice fell, the mountain in front began to tremble. The rocks on both sides slowly closed in the middle, completely closing the crack in the middle. As a result, the people inside could not get out. It was a dead end. The National Day special episode The Secret Realm of the Queen Mother of the West is about to be released, Chapter 100. Queen Mother's Palace. Golden Armor Warrior Jian Yuan and Zhu Baoyue were in front, and Qiu Chang's time and Zhu Yingyan were behind, entering the crack. Strangely, from the outside, the crack seemed narrower as they went in. But after entering and taking a few steps, the front became wider. After walking a few dozen steps, the view suddenly became clear. The four of them were on a cliff platform, coming out of a cave. In front of them was a vast sea of clouds, with white mist rolling like tides. There was no sun in the sky, but it was as bright as day. A long iron chain bridge extended from the platform to the distance. Just as Jiangandu said, the dome of the fairy palace could be seen in the distance, standing above the sea of clouds, majestic and magnificent, making people yearn for it. In front of the long bridge, a god in golden armor and silver robe stood silently, his eyes closed, motionless, with a long sword in his hand leaning on the ground, as if rooted. The four of them stopped at the same time and looked at the golden armor warrior. It was impossible to fly a sword here. If he wanted to move forward, he could only pass through the long iron chain bridge. However, to get on the long bridge, he would obviously have to fight against the golden armored warrior. Qiu Chang's time stared at it for a while, and just as he was about to speak, he suddenly heard the Kunlun mirror in his sea of consciousness say in shock, "The palace of the Queen Mother of the West." Its voice paused for a moment, and then said, "Oh, it turns out to be the Divine Fire Do." "The Divine Fire Do?" Qiu Chang's time asked. "To become a god through the power of incense and vows is the Divine Fire Do." The Kunlun mirror replied. "Now that you mention it, I have heard of it." Qiu Chang's time said in surprise, "The ancient human sect branch, the Divine Fire sect, inherited the inaction thought of Tiesan Laojun. It advocates not breathing, not refining ki, not practicing methods, gathering willpower, sitting to become a god, but later the sect seems to have become extinct. The road ahead was cut off by a knife, so it was extinct, right?" Kumlinjing said with emotion, and suddenly remembered something, and said in a deep voice, "Since it was built in imitation of the palace of the Queen Mother of the West, this secret realm should be the secret realm of the ancient Divine Fire sect, and it is not something that you, the foundation-building disciples, can enter without permission." Jing is right. Qiu Chang's time cleared his throat, pretending to suddenly discover something, frowned and said, "Huh. Brother Qiu, what's wrong?" Jian Yuan asked in a low voice. "If I remember correctly, this should be the secret realm of the Divine Fire sect." Qiu Chang's time replied. "The Divine Fire sect?" Everyone was speechless and stunned. They only heard Zhu Yingyan say, "The Divine Fire sect that pretends to be a god." "Yes." Seeing that Jiangandu was still confused, Qiu Chang's time explained, "This sect is a branch of the ancient human sect. It advocates saving the world and the people, spreading faith, and relying on the faith and will of the people to become gods." "Is this possible?" Ubabua said with a smile, "Just like the land god in the temple, being worshipped by people, can you become an immortal smoothly? No one knows the specific way of practice, because the Taoist tradition of the Divine Fire sect has been extinct 10,000 years ago. Zhu Yingyan did, according to what my senior brother said, this golden road general guarding the bridge should be the golden armor warrior of the Divine Fire sect, and each of them has the strength comparable to the golden core stage." The strength of the golden core stage, Jian Yuan and Zhu Baoyue looked at each other, and each of them reaped the fear on each other's face. When they entered the secret realm earlier, they saw that the bridge guarding general was majestic and awe-inspiring, so they did not dare to try to make a move, and then left the secret realm to go back for help. Now it seems that it is fortunate that he did not make a move, otherwise he might have been killed by the golden armor warrior. In that case, let's go back to the sect and ask the elders to come and deal with it. Jing Yuan said hesitantly. It should be so. Qiu Changtime said with a smile. Although he has the trump card Xiandu Thunder that specifically counters the willpower immortal god, he does not want to fight the golden armor warrior in an unfamiliar secret realm. Even if he defeats him, God knows what is behind. So everyone turned around and went back into the cave, walked a few dozen steps, and then encountered a dead end. Everyone. Why is it a dead end? Jing and Du shot and hurriedly cut the rock wall in front of them with their flying swords, trying to dig out an entrance on it. Of course, there is still a rock wall behind the rock wall. You two, stop digging. Qiu Changtime couldn't bear to watch and tried to persuade them. I think it's not the mechanism that blocked the entrance, but something happened to the secret realm here that blocked us inside. Zhu Yinlian, who was standing next to him, raised his eyebrows. Senior brother was really used to being invincible. He could even say such a terrifying thing as being blocked by the restriction so lightly. He was worthy at being a senior brother. Invincible character, synchronization value +1. Qiu Changtime looked back at Zhu Yinlian in astonishment, and Jing and Du heard that they were blocked in the secret realm. How could they calm down? They immediately used all their strength to drive the flying sword, transformed into crazy excavators, and continued to dig desperately on the stone wall. Seeing that persuasion was fruitless, Qiu Changtime could only wink at Zhu Yinlian, indicating that she should leave with him. The two walked out of the cave again and returned to the cliff platform by the Sea of Clouds. They saw the golden armor warrior standing majestically nearby, and the Sea of Clouds in the distance slowly rolling like a tide. It seemed that the vision was wide, but it gave people a strange feeling of narrowness and crampedness. Brother, what are you going to do? Zhu Yinlian asked in a low voice when she saw that he was calm and not panicking at all. The reason why Qiu Changtime was not panicking was, of course, because the Kunlun mirror could teleport him out of the secret realm at any time, and then he could ask the master to come back and save his junior sister. Jin, the eternal god. Of course, there is a great risk of being exposed. Not to mention his junior sister, even the master would definitely ask, how did you get out of the secret realm? If it really comes to a life and death crisis, there is no other way. But as long as there is a way, it is better not to use Jin, the ultimate weapon. After careful consideration, Qiu Changtime said calmly, from the perspective of the designer of the ban, if the entrance is suddenly blocked, it must be for the purpose of trapping people. There is no way to lift the ban by simply staying at the entrance. If we can't stay, we can only move. As for where to go, we don't seem to have any choice, do we? Indeed. Zhu Yinlian looked at the long iron chain bridge in front of him. It's just that this golden armored warrior, according to records, the reason why this golden armored warrior is comparable to a Jin and real person is because he is invulnerable to swords and spears, extremely strong, and difficult to kill by means other than Jindan level, but he does not really have the strength of Jindan level. Qiu Changtime thought for a moment, and said slowly, maybe we can try to make a move. Before he finished speaking, the golden armored warrior suddenly opened his eyes and raised a knife. He ignored Qiu Changtime and Zhu Yinlian who hurriedly took an attacking stance, and just strode into the cave. With Qiu Changtime's extensive knowledge and Zhu Yinlian's exquisite mind, they could see that Jing and the others had ducked too much and triggered the forbidden counterattack. They both closed their mouths at the same time, fearing that they would attract the hatred of the golden armored warrior. When the warrior entered the cave, Qiu Changtime suddenly realized it and grabbed his junior sister's hand and said anxiously, let's go. Zhu Yinlian also reacted and took the opportunity of the golden armored warrior entering the cave to immediately follow Qiu Changtime to rush onto the iron chain bridge. Since it was impossible to fly a sword in the secret realm, the two could only run forward along the long bridge. The iron chain was shaking and the bridge board under their feet was shaking constantly. In addition, the Sea of Clouds on both sides was deep and boundless, which made people feel that they were stepping on the road of no return. After rushing out for almost a few hundred meters, they heard a short scream from the back. Jing and the others in the cave were probably killed. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.